Chapter 1758. Just as Xiaohua held the cloud-suppressing seal in his left hand, an intense feeling of exhaustion suddenly emerged from his Buddha Sarira. At the same time, an inexplicable throbbing appeared in the stomach of the Buddha Sarira, where the Niwen Palace should be located. This is Xiaohua was flabbergasted. His left hand involuntarily twitched, and a sense of existence came from the palm of his left hand. Oh, so it's this thing. Xiaohua suddenly came to a realization. When he saw the eye on Goldie's forehead, he vaguely felt that his left hand should also have one. The scar across his palm should be something similar to Goldie's eye. But for so many years, his left hand didn't seem to have any movement, and even his memory didn't awaken. Xiaohua had almost forgotten about this thing. Who would have thought that when he arrived at the Netherworld, at the so-called Netherworld Eye, his left hand would actually have a faint movement? Just as this thought appeared in Xiaohua's mind, from the scar on his left hand, a powerful suction force suddenly appeared. This suction force directly rushed towards Xiaohua's Niwen Palace. Unfortunately, his Niwen Palace calmed down after jumping for a moment. The Buddhist consciousness of the Buddha Sarira, as well as the divine sense of the golden Buddha body, were all sucked away by that suction force. Moreover, the Buddhist consciousness was continuously being absorbed. Xiaohua's Buddha Sarira began to flicker at an extremely fast speed, gradually dimming down. Ouch! Xiaohua's head immediately felt a splitting pain. His figure swayed, and he was about to fall from the sky. Junior brother Xiao. Sun Shu had long been paying attention to Xiaohua's every move, fearing that Xiaohua would be injured in the battle with the dozen disciples. Seeing Xiaohua's abnormality, he was naturally the first to discover it. His figure immediately flew over, and without caring about anything else, he grabbed Xiaohua's waist. Junior brother Xiao. Qian Diheng shouted again. He quickly flew down, and used his hand to support Xiaohua's arm. But Xiaohua's face was pale, as if there was no blood in it. He was actually abnormally tired. Sun Shu retracted his hand without leaving a trace, and also supported Xiaohua's arm. A pair of autumn water eyes deeply stared at Xiaohua with deep concern. Xiaohua circulated the exquisite leaf scripture with all his might to resist the indescribable pain on his head. A bitter expression appeared on his face as he said in a low voice, "I'm afraid I can't fly anymore. I'll have to trouble senior brother Qian to take me away. Hurry up, don't let the Shanghua sect's disciples see any clues." "I understand." Qian Diheng pulled Sun Hua's arm, and was about to fly away. How could Sun Shu let him pull him away by himself? As she held onto his other arm, she grumbled, "Junior martial brother, if you really can't do it, then don't." Sun Shu wanted to complain, but he didn't know what to say. He could only look at Xiaohua's deathly pale face. Together with Qian Diheng, he hurriedly flew in a random direction. Kuan Fian looked at Sun Shu's back with a strange gaze. He gritted his teeth and chased after him. Since Xiaohua was injured, the search for the Zhongyao milk and even the treasures that could level up naturally had to be postponed. And without Xiaohua's support, Qian Diheng and the other two really didn't have the confidence to find any treasures on their own. Sun Shu and Qian Diheng flew for a while with Xiaohua. They saw that the wind pillars in front of them were getting thicker and thicker, and there were even slight space cracks blocking their way from time to time. They didn't dare to fly forward anymore. However, the terrain of Mingxi was special. There weren't any mountains that were too tall, only hills. It was difficult to even find a cave to rest in. Besides, Sun Shu and the other two understood that because the space of Mingxi was unstable, they also didn't know what was going on under the ground. They couldn't recklessly use Earth escape talismans. Otherwise, they would easily be injured by the space cracks. This kind of injury could easily damage their bodies, but in serious cases, they couldn't even keep their lives. Sun Shu looked at Qian Diheng and said in a low voice, "Junior martial brother Qian." How about Qian Diheng knew what Sun Shu wanted to say. He hurriedly shook his head. "Senior martial sister Sun, don't go looking for that place now. The current situation is different from what we expected. There are many disciples of the three cultivation sects here. Moreover, their cultivation bases are not inferior to ours. If junior martial brother Xiao can't recover before they find out, not only will we not be able to get the Zhongyao milk, we might even lose our lives." Xiaohua seemed to be extremely weak. He said in a low voice, Let's fly to the other side of Mingxi first. Don't go inside. Let me recover first. But Qian Diheng was still somewhat hesitant. Mingxi really wasn't a place for qi refining cultivators. The reason why they dared to come here was naturally because they had made preparations beforehand. Moreover, they also knew that there was a safe path. Although Xiaohua said to just fly to the other side and not go deep, in fact, it was still very dangerous. Let's listen to Junior Marshal Brother Zhao's instructions. Although there was a trace of hesitation on Sun Shu's face, she still nodded resolutely. Fine, Qian Diheng sighed. His divine sense swept towards the place where they came from. However, this sweep shocked him. Divine sense could only be used within a range of about 1 zhang. Any further, and he basically couldn't go out. Fortunately, after searching for about an hour, they found a semi-shallow cave in a low-lying area between 2 hills. At this moment, Xiaohua's severe headache was slightly alleviated. He endured the headache and laid down a formation. The 4 of them hid inside and rested. Seeing Xiaohua meditating with his 5 centers facing the sky and the muscles between his eyebrows twitching from time to time, Sun Shu, although sitting far away from him, also felt her heart clench. Only after several hours did Xiaohua's complexion gradually return to normal. 3 days later, Xiaohua finally stopped the rapid circulation of the exquisite leaf scripture. The dim splendor of the Buddha's Saraira returned to its previous appearance. Not only that, after the absorption of the suction force and Xiaohua's sleepless cultivation for the past 3 days, the Saraira became even more vivid. The surface of the Saraira faintly had a swastika appearing. Instead, it had made even more progress. What was even more strange was that in the space between the Saraira's eyebrows, under the swastika symbol, there was a vertical crack, just like a third eye. Delusion breaker Dharma eye. Although Xiaohua didn't open his eyes, his left hand slightly opened. The crack in his hand also slightly opened. A flickering silver eye stared at everything inside the cave for a long time. The eye in my hand is actually called the Delusion Breaker Dharma eye. Xiaohua couldn't help but set off a shocking wave in his heart. After all, everything he saw when he opened the Delusion Breaker Dharma eye made him extremely shocked. The cave inside the Delusion Breaker Dharma eye was different from what he saw with the naked eye. He only saw cracks as thin as an ox's hair, as well as different kinds of fluorescent lights beside the cracks. As for the stones and the ground, they were all muddy. Combined with what he remembered in his mind, Xiaohua understood that these fluorescent lights should be the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. And those thin cracks as thin as an ox's hair should be the so-called space cracks. This delusion breaker Dharma eye is controlled by Buddha's consciousness. It should have been asleep before. If I hadn't come to this dark mystery, because of some unknown reason, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to wake it up. However, right now the Saraira's level is still too low. It still can't control the delusion breaker Dharma eye. Although Xiaohua knew that the delusion breaker Dharma eye was a good thing, he still didn't know what it could be used for. Moreover, every time he opened it, his Saraira would feel tired, so he could only close it and slowly rest. Xiaohua opened his eyes and looked at the group of people who were resting and patrolling in the distance. Without waiting for him to speak, Sun Shu very sensitively opened her eyes and called out very happily. Junior Marshal Brother Xiao Yu, your injuries have healed? Xiaohua secretly felt ashamed, but the corners of his mouth held a smile as he said, Senior Marshal Sister, thank you for your concern. Little brother is already fine. Alas, Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, you know. Forget it, I won't say it. In the future, when you control magic weapons, don't be so stingy with your magic power. Although magic weapons are useful, they're far from what aura-refining cultivators like you and me can use as we wish. Seeing Qian Diheng's concern, Xiaohua took advantage of the situation and smiled apologetically. Wasn't little brother forced to do this? If I didn't do this, how could we come in? And that's right. How are Senior Marshal Brother Ken and the others? Who cares about them? Qian Diheng curled his lips, very disdainful. He waved his hand and said, when I think of Kinpeng's appearance, I just feel unhappy. What right does he have to be there to criticize us? If he had 80% of Junior Marshal Brother Zhao's divine power, I would listen to his nagging. Don't, Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. Maybe we should consider the big picture. We're really a bit willful. Kuan Fian smiled and said, "No matter, from what I see, the few of us were able to rush in from the Shanghua sect's formation. First, it showed the prestige of our Imperial Thunder sect, and second, the other disciples could also take advantage of the situation to attack. If they still can't take advantage of such a good opportunity, then they're a bunch of pigs." Qian Diheng continued. Qian Diheng was talking more and more nonsense, almost feeling like he was the junior martial brother. Xiaohua touched his nose and said, "We've already rested for a few days, let's go to that place. Little brother can't help but want to see what Zhongyao looks like." "Hee, junior martial brother Xiao, since we're here, we don't need to hide anymore." Qian Diheng glanced at Sun Shu and smiled. This kind of thing should have been explained to junior martial brother long ago. After all, it's all junior martial brother Zhao's credit that we're able to come here. Xiaohua asked curiously, "Senior martial brother Qian, why are you saying such useless things? Could it be that there's some twists and turns in the process?" "Sai, there's no twists and turns." Sun Shu smiled bitterly and said, "After all, when I was discussing with senior martial sister Kuan and junior martial brother Qian, we already agreed that we wouldn't tell junior martial brother Xiao until the last moment. Of course, this isn't purposely hiding something, it's because this place is too important. Only close descendants of the Imperial Thunder sect can know about it. If they can't enter the netherworld, the news will be leaked." "Oh, I'm not afraid that junior martial brother Xiao will leak the news." Sun Shu thought of something again and hurriedly explained. Hee, don't worry. Xiao Hua himself had a lot of secrets. Why would he care about other people's precautions? Moreover, Xiao Hua wasn't blind and he wasn't an ignorant youth. How could he not know about Sun Shu's performance along the way? How could he not understand Sun Shu's intentions? If Kuan Fian or Qian Diheng would purposely hide something from him, Sun Shu definitely wouldn't. Chapter 1759. Since we've already come all the way here, let's not talk about unnecessary things, Xiao Hua said with a smile. We're brothers from the same sect. Some natural barriers can't stop us from having a common goal. Ha, good. Qian Diheng clapped and laughed. Sister Sun, are you ready? Can you use that magic weapon? Of course. Sun Shu smiled and said, Brother Xiao has been recuperating these days, and I haven't been idle either. I've already adjusted my power to the best level. Kuan Fian's eyes also flashed with a trace of surprise. He smiled and said, Since that's the case, why don't you hurry up and cast the spell? I'll listen to Sister Kuan. Sun Shu clapped her hands, and a palm-sized conch-like magic weapon was taken out by her. This magic weapon was different from the cloud-suppressing seal. It didn't seem to have any frightening power, nor did it have any dazzling light. This is a magic weapon of Ai's ancestor. It's called Searching Conch. It can record the places you've been to before using a special method, so you can easily find this place in the future. Xiao Hua scratched his head, smiled and said, This thing is suitable for me. I've never had a sense of direction. I can easily get lost. Haha, Brother Xiao, don't underestimate this Searching Conch. Qian Diheng knew that Xiao Hua didn't understand. He smiled and said, This place contains some formations, some secret places, and even some space cracks. What? Could it be done through an array? Through space cracks? Xiao Hua seemed to wake up from a dream. He looked at the Searching Conch and said in shock, Could it be that the place where Zhongyao is inside a space crack? Good. Qian Diheng's face was full of excitement. He clapped again and said, Haha, Brother Xiao, I just wanted to see your shocked face. I've been looking forward to it all the way. Today I finally see it. You didn't expect it at all, right? That thing is not only inside the dark mystery, but also inside the space crack. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, I didn't expect it. Even if Brother Qian said it's a space crack, I don't know where it is. There are thousands of space cracks inside the dark mystery. How can I find it? So it all depends on luck. Sun Shu pursed his lips and smiled. He looked at the foraging conch in his hand and said, Moreover, this foraging conch doesn't only have the functions that junior brother Qian mentioned. According to the control method, I can also find a place that meets Ai's wishes within a certain range. Of course, this range and the chance of success is related to Ai's cultivation. Oh, it is indeed a great magical treasure. Xiao Hua nodded. In his heart, he understood that this function that Sun Shu was talking about should be the true value of the searching snail. Senior Sun, please cast your spell. Kuan Fei Yan squinted his eyes and urged. Sun Shu sat down cross-legged and tossed the foraging conch into the air. He closed his eyes tightly and used his left and right hands as if he was holding an orchid. A seemingly elegant and mysterious spell was slowly cast. When all kinds of spells hit the foraging conch gradually emitted a red brilliance. After the red brilliance, it emitted a light green brilliance. Xiaohua carefully counted. When an extremely bright brilliance appeared, the foraging conch actually changed into 9 different colors in a row. When the bright light appeared, it transformed into the shape of a searching snail in front of Sun Shu's eyes. It was just that this searching snail's phantom followed the spiral of the searching snail and slightly rotated, making it look like a stream of light was flowing everywhere. When Sun Shu saw the phantom appear, she let out a long sigh of relief. Her hanging heart finally settled down. Soon after, Sun Shu's left and right hands formed different spells again. This time, it was abnormally fast. It was as if a phantom was flashing in front of her eyes. In the end, there seemed to be 4 jade-like soft hands dancing in the air. Quick, Sun Shu shouted, and the 4 palms suddenly disappeared. Only the thumbs of the 2 hands remained on her forehead. Those 2 hands transformed into a pair of wings. With a pu sound, Sun Shu's red lips opened and a mouthful of essence blood was sprayed on the searching snail's phantom. That phantom was still slowly rotating. The blood mist was evenly spread on the searching snail's spiral. Moreover, the strange thing was that after the blood mist covered the phantom, it still grew out of the phantom and gradually formed 2 small wings on both sides of the phantom. Sigh, Sun Shu let out a long sigh. Her face was abnormally pale. She forced a smile and said, Junior brother Xiao, fortunately I didn't disappoint you. I finally activated the searching snail. Think about it. Compared to junior brother Zhao's cloud-suppressing seal, it's really too different. Senior sister Sun, you've worked hard, Xiaohua said with concern. It's better to quickly take the pill. Sun Shu's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of warmth. She smiled and said, It's not a problem. Although she said that, she still took out a scarlet pill from her storage bag and swallowed it. In front of Xiaohua, she sat down cross-legged and recovered her magic power. After a while, Sun Shu's face flushed red. Her eyes were still closed and she touched the searching snail. The searching snail didn't move, but the phantom moved first. The blood-red wings on the 2 sides of the phantom flapped slightly, and the phantom flew up into the air, flying out of the cave. Junior brother Xiao, quickly remove the formation. Sun Shu suddenly thought of something and hurriedly shouted. Yes. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. As he spoke, he formed a seal and collected the dozens of talismans around the cave. Then Sun Shu and the others flew out. They saw the searching snail phantom fly out of the cave. First, it stopped in front of the cave for a moment. Like a rolling wave, it turned wave after wave. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, it slowly flew in a certain direction. Good. Seeing this scene, the 4 of them understood that the searching snail had found Zhong Yaolu's location. This trip wouldn't be a waste. Senior brother Qian, senior sister Kuan, we have prepared the magic tools. There are many 12th layer qi refining cultivators here. Maybe their masters will come too. We will protect the searching snail and senior sister Sun. Let senior sister Sun focus on controlling the searching snail. Xiaohua's divine sense swept and immediately knew that his divine sense was restricted. We will listen to junior brother Zhao's orders. Qian Dihing and Kuan Fian each took out Minghao halberd and thunder trapping bead, and flew to the left and right of Sun Shu. Xiaohua held the cloud-suppressing seal in his hand, and flew slightly behind the 3 of them. The searching snail flew fast and slow. Its flight path was also winding, as if it was going in circles. It also seemed to be looking for something that was constantly changing its position. At first, the searching snail was still at the periphery of the netherworld. But after half an incense's time, the wind pillar gradually became thicker. Xiaohua knew that it was going to enter the depths of the netherworld. Right at this moment, a swift and fierce sound of wind abruptly rang out 3 meters above Xiaohua's head. If you like this work, You are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it. Chapter 1760. While Xiaohua was flying cautiously, he suddenly heard a loud ripping sound above his head. The wind was biting cold, and before he could raise his head, Xiaohua's divine sense swept out and saw that above his head, a 1 zhang long and 1 qi wide spatial crack had appeared out of thin air. Xiaohua was astounded because the smell of blood and desolation emanated from the spatial rift. It was even to the extent that an extremely icy cold blade of wind had swept out from within it. Although this wind blade was not enough to threaten Xiaohua, but to ordinary people, it was a killing weapon. What was even more strange was that when Xiaohua's divine sense swept over this spatial crack, a majestic spatial power came from all around, suppressing this spatial crack. Moreover, the spatial crack also had a kind of self-healing power, sealing this spatial crack bit by bit at a speed visible to the naked eye. And in a moment, it disappeared. The appearance and disappearance of the spatial crack naturally attracted the attention of Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian. The two of them followed Sun Shu while looking back at Xiaohua from time to time. When Xiaohua flew closer with a strange expression, Kuan Fian said in a low voice, "Junior brother Xiao, this temporary spatial crack is not the greatest danger of dark mystery." Qian Diheng was also unusually solemn and said, "It's also because junior brother Zhao's luck is good. If that spatial crack that suddenly appeared was 1 qi lower, junior brother Zhao's body, I'm afraid it would not be safe." Xiaohua himself also felt a little scared, looking at Kuan Fian and asked, "Such a powerful spatial crack is still not the most powerful? Then the most powerful thing is the wind pillar?" Kuan Fian shook his head and said, "Of course the wind pillar is powerful, if not a function cultivator, who would dare to go near it? However, this wind pillar is visible to the naked eye. Those spatial cracks that cannot be seen by the naked eye and divine sense are the most terrifying?" There are spatial cracks that cannot be seen by divine sense? Xiaohua was shocked. This was something he did not see in the ancient records. And senior sister Kuan is right. Qian Diheng replied. The space in Mingxi is not stable. There are fixed cracks that can be seen by the naked eye and fixed cracks that can be seen by divine sense. In addition to the temporary cracks that junior martial brother saw just now, there are many other cracks. Among them, the ones that can't be seen by divine sense are the most terrifying. It's like a trap. Once you jump into it, your body will be torn apart unknowingly. You won't have time to do anything to fix it. You'll only end up with your soul dissipating. When Xiaohua heard this, his face turned somewhat pale. That's right, such a powerful spatial crack is simply an incomparably powerful magic treasure. It's simply even more powerful than the lizard's invisibility. Seeing the change in Xiaohua's expression, Qian Diheng couldn't help but laugh. He turned around and put his hand on Xiaohua's shoulder, laughing. Junior brother Xiao, you don't have to be afraid. Although this invisible space crack is powerful, it is in the depths of the netherworld. We definitely won't be able to see it on our way. Don't worry. Oh, so it's like that. Xiaohua let out a sigh of relief, but he still wasn't too reassured. He asked, since the space outside Mingxi is relatively stable, then shouldn't the temporary cracks that appeared just now also not appear? Hearing Xiaohua's words, Qian Diheng suddenly woke up. The expression on his face immediately changed. At the same time, a trace of fear flashed across his eyes as he looked at Kuan Fian. Of course, Kuan Fian's reaction was the same as Qian Diheng's. He said in horror, Junior martial brother Xiao is right. This temporary spatial crack should be in the depths of Mingxi. Here it definitely won't appear. Could it be that what Zhong Haoren and the others said? There really is a change in Mingxi? Junior martial brother Xiao, should we continue? Qian Diheng took his hand off Xiaohua's shoulder and asked hesitantly. Xiaohua looked at Sun Shu, who was trying his best to control the snail, and didn't have time to pay attention to this side. He thought for a while and said, in my opinion, let's not continue. Anyway, Zhong Yaolu is there. If we don't look for him, others won't know. Let's wait for the next time. However, as soon as his voice fell, Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian said in unison, no. Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian felt that they were a little rash and disrespectful to Xiaohua. They hurriedly explained, Junior martial brother Xiao. No, Sai junior martial brother. I won't say anything unnecessary. Could it be that you have lost your confidence after one failure, and are not in a hurry to build your foundation? We came out with a bang. Could it be that we have to go back with a face covered in dirt? Even if Master doesn't say anything, the senior martial sister of Earth Thunder Palace doesn't say anything. What about the others? What would the other disciples of Thunder Palace say? Kuan Fian also said. Sigh. Xiaohua naturally knew what they were thinking. He smiled and said, "Don't the disciples of Shanghua sect have treasures? Let's go there." Kuan Fian shook his head slightly. Not to mention that there are too many monks and too little gruel. Even if we go, I'm afraid that only junior martial brother Xiao has the confidence to get that thing. What hope do we have? And since there are changes in the netherworld, I'm afraid there are also changes there. It's also not safe. After thinking about it, Zhong Yao Lao is still the most reliable. Junior martial brother Xiao, if you don't want to go forward, you can go find Qin Shi Ming and the others. We definitely won't complain about anything. Qian Diheng gritted his teeth and finally said, "Ha ha ha." Xiaohua laughed loudly. Just like Qian Diheng, he flew in front of him and stretched out his hand to wrap around his neck. He laughed and said, "You bastard, I'm just worried about your safety. I didn't say that I don't want to go. Why are you pushing me there?" Ha ha. Qian Diheng also laughed. He turned his hand to wrap around Xiaohua's neck and said, "Like I said, junior martial brother Xiao is the most straightforward. In the Thunder Palace, you are the only person I like. How can you not go with me? If you don't go, I'll go blind first." Hee hee. Kuan Fian's face also showed a happy expression, but a trace of gloominess flashed in his eyes. After flying forward in a zigzag manner for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the space crack that suddenly appeared again. But this time, it was in the air a little further away from the four of them. Although it didn't hurt the four of them, Xiaohua's heart suddenly tightened. He thought for a moment and released his Buddhist sense. However, Buddhist sense and divine sense were the same. Although it was more than 10 times farther, compared to the naked eye, it still couldn't reach far. However, when he released his Buddhist sense this time, Xiaohua faintly felt that his Buddhist sense was a little different from before. It seemed that the degree of observation was a little higher. He could faintly feel the existence of those cracks in space. Great! Xiaohua immediately thought of the third eye between the eyebrows of the Buddha relics. Wasn't that the mark of the awakening of the Dharma eye? Thinking of this, Xiaohua withdrew his Buddhist sense. His left hand opened slightly, and the Dharma eye on his hand opened a small slit. Immediately, the third eye on the Buddha relics also opened. Although Xiaohua didn't close his eyes, the third eye on his Buddha relics was actually the same as the Dharma eye. He could see the countless amounts of heaven and earth spiritual chi flashing faintly between heaven and earth, as well as thin, almost invisible space cracks. Wonderful! Xiaohua raised his hand and saw a space crack slowly forming in midair. It then expanded, and a wind blade with countless amounts of pale yellow heaven and earth spiritual chi quickly streaked across that crack. Boom! A huge wind sound rang out, and in midair, another space crack appeared. Looking in front of the four of them, he could see everything within 100 feet. Looking further, Xiaohua felt an irrepressible exhaustion. Xiaohua understood that now he could only see about 100 feet. If his cultivation increased in the future, he should be able to see even further. And now 100 feet was enough. Ouch! Xiaohua raised his left hand to look. Suddenly, he saw the phantom of the Seeking Conch flying across a 1-foot-long, 2-inch-wide space crack. Sun Shu didn't know that her towering chest was rushing towards the outline of that crack. Is this the invisible space crack? Xiaohua was shocked. He didn't have time to say anything to stop her. His figure quickly flew over, grabbed Sun Shu's waist, and suddenly flew up several feet, dodging that crack. Junior martial brother, what are you doing? Sun Shu was concentrating on casting her technique. She didn't think that Xiaohua would grab her waist. When she came to her senses, how could she stop Xiaohua? She could only wait for Xiaohua to stop. Then she blushed and reproached him. Seeing the doubt in Sun Shu's eyes, Xiaohua didn't have time to explain. He turned his head and shouted, "Senior martial brother Qian, senior martial sister Kuan, fly past me." What? Seeing Xiaohua's sudden movement, Qian Diheng and Kuan Fian also found it strange. Qian Diheng's eyes even showed a playful look, but after hearing Xiao Hua's warning, the two of them suddenly woke up and hurriedly stopped their speed. They slowly circled around Xiao Hua and flew over. Sun Shu slipped out of Xiao Hua's hands without leaving a trace. She looked behind Xiao Hua with a complicated gaze and said in a low voice, "Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, you mean Senior Marshal Sister Sun naturally knows that my premonition is very strong, right?" Xiao Hua stretched out his right hand and pinched his chin. He also looked at the space behind him, and said very calmly, "And indeed." Sun Shu nodded. "I already knew on the way back from the Feather Immortal Gathering." "Good." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "I feel that there is something very dangerous in this area, but I don't know what it is. I was afraid that Senior Marshal Sister would be injured, so I rashly brought Senior Marshal Sister here. I hope Senior Marshal Sister." Sun Shu bit her lips. She couldn't tell if she was disappointed or lucky. She didn't say a word. "Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, then what kind of danger could it be?" Kuan Fei Yan asked hesitantly. "I really don't know." Xiao Hua revealed a bitter smile and shook his head. "I only have a feeling. But because of this feeling, I can't let Senior Marshal Sister Sun take the risk." Sun Shu felt sweet in her heart. She also smiled sweetly and said, "Could it be the most powerful invisible spatial crack in dark mystery?" Chapter 1761. Isn't that simple? Qian Diheng said with a smile. "You just need to find something to test it out. If there isn't, then forget it, but if there really is, damn it, Junior Brother Xiao, you are our lucky talisman." "Lucky talisman?" Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously. "There is such a talisman?" Haha, Sun Shu was also in a good mood. She pursed her lips and said, "Don't listen to Junior Brother Qian teasing you. Where is there a lucky talisman?" Ha ha ha, Xiao Hua comes to his senses and punches Qian Diheng's shoulder. But Kuan Fian at the side had a smile that was not a smile. When Qian Diheng pretended to beg for mercy, he said with a smile, "Junior Sister Sun, you are wrong. There really are lucky talismans in this world." "What?" Sun Shu was stunned and asked curiously. "Lucky talisman? Isn't it a kind of jade pendant? Could it be that there is really a talisman that as long as you wear it, you will be blessed with a lifetime of peace and safety?" "Does Junior Sister Sun know about the 5 auspicious beasts?" Kuan Fian asked with a smile that was not a smile. This Sun Shu obviously did not know. She blushed a little and said in a low voice, "I only know about the 4 mythological beasts." Haha, Senior Sister Sun has nothing to feel inferior about. Although I am in Heavenly Thunder Palace, I also only know that Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise are the 4 mythological beasts. Qian Diheng said disapprovingly. As for the 5 auspicious beasts, I also don't know. Azure Dragon? Xiao Hua's heart moved. He naturally thought of Little White. He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Senior brothers, what are you talking about? I am a disciple of Heavenly Thunder Palace. I don't know about these mythological beasts and auspicious beasts. It seems that Heavenly Thunder Palace's library also doesn't have records of this? Hee, these are all passed down from ancient times. Who knows if it is true or false? The library naturally doesn't have it. Not to mention Heavenly Thunder Palace. Even Heavenly Thunder Palace is the same," Qian Diheng said with a smile. "That's right. Legend has it that in ancient times, there were 4 continents in the world, each occupying the 4 corners of the world. Each continent had a divine beast that guarded it. According to the positions of the 4 continents in the east, west, north and south, they became the 4 spirits, which are the 4 divine beasts. They are the Azure Dragon, the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird, and the Black Tortoise," Sun Shu explained with a smile. However, whether or not these 4 are really divine beasts, or a collective name for a group of spirit beasts, no one knows for sure. Then he looked at Kuan Fian and said, "As for the 5 auspicious beasts that Senior Kuan mentioned, I have never heard of them." Kuan Fei Yan laughed coldly. "Just because it's unheard of doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Didn't the 4 great mythological beasts also become legends? Why do so many people believe it?" "That's because there are still some clues that can be found," Qian Diheng argued. Isn't Tai Ching Sek's flood dragon spirit beast an example? What kind of dragon is that? Kuan Fian laughed coldly. Dragons are inherently lustful. The dragon species is already not pure. The so-called 9 sons of the dragon are all different. Who knows how many dragon veins Tai Ching Sek's flood dragon has? That azure dragon has pure dragon veins. Other than the 5-clawed golden dragon, which is a descendant of the heaven realm's heavenly dragon, the others are all mixed. Speaking till here, Kuan Fian's face turned slightly red and did not say any more. See? Hearing about the dragon veins, Xiaohua's heart shivered again. Just as he was about to ask, he heard Qian Diheng cut in. Senior Kuan, don't show off. Let's talk about the 5 auspicious beasts and the auspicious talisman first. Kuan Fian nodded in satisfaction and said, the 5 auspicious beasts are Pai Xiu, Qilin, Peacock, Golden Toad, and Longevity Turtle. Ah! Xiaohua and the other 2 were all shocked and asked curiously, where did the reason come from? Pai Xiu is a ferocious auspicious beast. The male is called Pai. The female is called Xiu. Pai Xiu is ferocious and mighty. It is in charge of patrolling the celestial realm, stopping demons, ghosts, plagues, and diseases from causing disturbances. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. The male Qilin is called Qilin, the female Qilin. Their appearances are strange. They have a dragon head, antlers, horse hooves, ox tail, wolf forehead, and their bodies are covered with colorful scales. According to legends, wherever a Qilin steps, it will bring good luck to the people there. Thus it is called Qilin auspicious. It is a symbol of auspiciousness. At the same time, Qilins are ferocious like Pai Xiu. They can eliminate disasters and expel evil spirits. Thus it is also called an auspicious beast. Peacock is a descendant of the phoenix. Its body is green. It has a chicken head, swallow's jaw, snake's neck, fish's tail, and its voice is loud and clear. Peacock is the same as the phoenix. It will not land in a place without treasures. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. Golden Toad is a symbol of wealth. It only has 3 legs. The place it is at will always have extremely rare treasures. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. Longevity Turtle is a descendant of the black tortoise. It is famous for its long lifespan. Thus it is called an auspicious beast. Kuan Fian said a lot with joy. Xiaohua's eyes were full of splendor. Especially when he talked about Peacock. Xiaohua immediately thought of the phoenix illusion in the space. That phoenix illusion was originally green. Only when it was activated with mana, it would show 5 colors. It was very similar to the peacock that Kuan Fian talked about. Fine. After Kuan Fian finished, Qian Diheng rolled his eyes and said, what peacock? What longevity turtle? They are all descendants of the phoenix and black tortoise. That golden toad is a 3-legged toad. How can it be called an auspicious beast? But Pai Xiu and Qilin, they are abnormally ferocious. They can become spirit beasts. Kuan Fian did not care about Qian Diheng's rebuke. He smiled and said, if it is, then it is. If it is not, then it is not. I will not say things without reason. Also, from what I know, the talismans made from the fur and blood of these 5 auspicious beasts, when worn on the body of a cultivator, can reverse the cultivator's fate, turning misfortune into luck, disaster into auspiciousness. Ah, so it's like that. Xiaohua suddenly understood. Spirit talismans were originally refined from the fur and flesh of spirit beasts. Although the 5 great auspicious beasts were powerful, they were still spirit beasts. Whoever could really use their fur and beast blood to refine spirit talismans might really be able to accompany Ji Xiang forever. Xiaohua's eyes turned. He smiled and said, could it be that only talismans can be made? Didn't they say that jade talismans are more profound, so there is no auspicious jade talisman? Hee, junior brother Xiao is smart. I was just about to say. Kuan Fian smiled and said, the true auspicious talisman can only be made from the fur of these 5 auspicious beasts. Although jade talismans are more powerful than spirit talismans, but in terms of auspicious protection, it is still inferior by a lot, falling into the inferior category. There is really a jade talisman that is similar to the 5 auspicious beasts? Xiaohua's heart could not help but jump wildly. Yes. Kuan Fian smiled and said, I know that there is a jade talisman in the shape of a qilin. Normally it looks very normal, but it can bring good luck to people, Of course, as a jade talisman, using a special method, it can be used as a magic tool or treasure. Special method? Xiaohua said anxiously. What special method? I do not know about this. Kuan-Fian shook his head, after which he asked curiously, could it be that junior brother Xiao also has this kind of rare auspicious jade talisman? Come to vote for me. Chapter 1762. Hee, I'm just a loose cultivator. How could I have such an opportunity? Xiaohua bitterly smiled. It's just that in the past, I saw a jade artifact that looked like a peacock that senior sister Kuan mentioned. At that time, they said it was a good item, worth a few middle-grade spirit stones. Although I liked it, I didn't have that many spirit stones, so I could only leave. Now that senior sister Kuan mentioned it, I remembered and felt a little regretful. I want to know what that special technique is. If I knew, I would exchange it for that jade artifact even if I had to sell it. Pucci. Kuan-Fian laughed out loud. If it's really like what junior brother Xiao said, then junior brother Xiao doesn't need to feel regretful. This kind of auspicious talisman can't be exchanged with spirit stones. Moreover, that special technique should be inside the jade talisman. If junior brother Xiao doesn't take the jade talisman back, how can you get it? This thing can't be confirmed in person. Although Kuan-Fian said so, Xiaohua was still half believing and half doubtful. It's just that he was in Mingxi, so he didn't have time to take out the phoenix illusion that Xiao Xianrui gave him. Thinking of Mingxi, Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh. They were just talking about the invisible space crack, and suddenly they talked about the auspicious talisman, the 5 auspicious beasts, and the jade talisman. He smiled and pointed forward. Senior sister Kuan, senior brother Qian. Didn't you say you wanted to see if there was any danger here? Did we go off topic? Hee, I saw that senior sister Sun was too tired, so we talked a little more and let her rest a little more. Qian Diheng smiled and took out a spirit stone. I'll try it now. Sun Shu looked at Qian Diheng throwing out the spirit stone and smiled. Thank you junior brother Qian for your concern. Xiaohua also suddenly understood. He looked up and saw that the seeking conch was still in Sun Shu's hand, and that phantom also stopped above Sun Shu's head. Sun Shu's face was flushed red. Obviously she was in good spirits. Qian Diheng drove the spirit stone to a 1 zhang radius behind Xiaohua. There wasn't any danger, so he smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao, I'm afraid you're thinking too much. And it's good to be a little more careful. Sun Shu quickly said. If we encounter it, it won't be good. Hee, it's best if you don't. After all, the invisible space crack was extremely narrow and not very long. How could a spirit stone coincidentally touch it? Xiaohua didn't point it out and said while rubbing his nose. Haha, Xiao de Xiang talisman can't be made anymore. Qian Diheng waved his hand, and the spirit stone flew back into his hand. But at this moment, a light paw sound rang out, and the entire spirit stone strangely split into 2. Qian Diheng laughed so hard that he couldn't close his mouth. With his eyes wide open, he stared at the 2 neatly separated spirit stones in a daze. Spatial crack. Sun Shu's expression suddenly changed. Wasn't the location of the spirit stone where she had just flown past? Isn't that the position where Xiaohua grabbed her waist and leaped? Immediately, cold sweat appeared on Sun Shu's forehead. There really are invisible spatial rifts. Xiaohua was also greatly alarmed. He blinked his eyes and stared at that place for a moment. Then he similarly patted his hand and took out an empty jade bottle. He then threw it next to the spirit stone. With a pung sound, the jade bottle was also cut open by the invisible spatial rift, like a sharp blade. Damn it! This is really inconceivable. Qian Diheng waved his hand and kept the spirit stone. He looked at Xiaohua with a face of reverence. Junior brother Xiao, you lead the way in front. This brother will definitely follow you and not deviate a single step. Kuan-Fian's expression was also complicated. His body shrank back a bit. But Sun Shu looked at the searching conch and said with difficulty, I can't fly behind junior brother Xiao. Haha, Xiaohua laughed. Then this little brother will accompany senior sister Sun and be senior sister's auspicious talisman. Okay, Sun Shu's face was a bit hot, but her heart was sweet. She changed her hand sign, and the searching conk's image flew up again. Her body also flew up. Looking at her expression, it was clear that she trusted Xiaohua and was not afraid of any danger ahead. After flying for another incense's time, Xiaohua unconsciously started to sweat. This was not because he was tired, but there were actually many invisible spatial rifts. Once or twice, Xiaohua could shamelessly say that it was just a feeling. But 3 or 4 times, no matter what, it could not be a problem of feeling. Seeing that there were actually 4 spatial rifts blocking the way ahead, Xiaohua's heart was anxious. He could not possibly ask for another detour, right? But at this moment, the searching conk's image suddenly stopped. It flapped its wings and fell from the sky, landing right on top of the searching conch. It disappeared without a trace. Io, senior sister Sun. Xiaohua was shocked and turned to look at Sun Shu. Luckily, Sun Shu was not injured as he imagined. Her face was pale and her eyes were filled with surprise. Clearly, the searching conch stopping was also out of her expectations. What's going on? Kuan Fian and Qian Diheng could not help but fly up and look at her strangely. This Sun Shu frowned and thought for a moment before shaking her head. I do not know. After all, I have only used the searching conch a few times. Then Sun Shu frowned and thought for a moment before saying, according to I's understanding, the searching conch losing its effect is because the spatial rift Zhongyao milk is in has already been destroyed. Everything in the spatial rift, including the Zhongyao milk, has been destroyed. No way. Qian Diheng said with a sad face, we worked so hard to reach the last step, and it actually became like drawing water with a bamboo basket. This is really unacceptable to I. Kuan Fian and Xiaohua's faces were also filled with disappointment. Of course what I said just now may not be true. Sun Shu hurriedly said, maybe some magic tools or treasures are also looking for the Zhongyao milk, or maybe they are inside the spatial rift, which can also affect the searching conch's effect. Hearing this, everyone's hearts were half happy and half worried. If someone was also looking for the Zhongyao milk, there was a 90% chance that it was a disciple of the 3 sections. Moreover, a disciple of the 12th level of Qi refining had set up a defense at the entrance of the netherworld, so it must be a disciple of the foundation establishment stage who went inside. This was not something that Xiaohua and the others could deal with. But if there was a magic tool in the spatial rift that affected the searching conch, then this magic tool was worth looking forward to. How could they not be happy? The 4 of them looked at each other, then Sun Shu and the others looked at Xiaohua's face. Xiaohua thought for a moment before saying, if we don't go and see with our own eyes, I think we won't be willing. Moreover, according to I's thinking, if there is really a senior of the foundation establishment stage, why would the 3 sects work so hard to set up a defense at the entrance of the netherworld? Even if there is a senior of the foundation establishment stage, don't we still have other martial brothers? Let's go outside and take a look. If there is no chance, then we'll talk about it in the future, or find other opportunities. Sun Shu nodded. I also feel that the possibility of a senior of the foundation establishment stage is not big. After all, what they want is a treasure of the foundation establishment stage, and the difference between it and the Zhongyao milk is too big. We should still go, but how should we go? Kuan Fian said in a low voice. Naturally, we should continue to walk forward. Qian Diheng pointed at the location of the invisible spatial rifts. That's not right. Xiaohua hurriedly stopped him and said with a smile, since the searching conch fell here, it's not auspicious to continue to walk forward. In my opinion, let's walk from the side and see if there is anything strange. This Xiaohua's explanation was very far-fetched. Qian Diheng was a little unhappy, but after looking at Kuan Fian and Qian Diheng, he could only say embarrassedly, let's listen to junior brother Zhao's instructions. Let's go. Xiaohua was also not polite. With a wave of his hand, he led everyone to go around the invisible spatial rifts. Sun Shu did not take back the searching conch. She pointed her finger, and the searching conch spun quickly. The blood-like spiral spun round and round, floating above her head. After walking for about half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua felt that they had more or less gone around the spatial rifts. Then he changed his direction again. Just as he was about to fly in the direction of the searching conch, Kuan Fian suddenly said in a low voice, Junior brother Xiao, look, what is that? Following the direction that Kuan-Fian was pointing at, everyone lowered their heads to look. On the ground about 30 feet in front of them, there was a layer of yellow-black vegetation. And on top of that vegetation, there was an irregular black object the size of a palm. This object was not big, and mixed in with the yellow and black color. It was not particularly conspicuous. If Kuan-Fian did not point it out, Xiaohua and the others would definitely not be able to see it. At this time, everyone was suspicious of the searching conk's failure, so they were very sensitive to these things. Qian Diheng's eyes immediately showed a trace of eagerness and he shouted, "Could it be a treasure?" But when everyone flew closer, with their spiritual sense, although there were fluctuations of spiritual energy on that object, it was very weak. It was not something that could be emitted by any magic tool or treasure. Xiaohua looked around very cautiously, but in his spiritual sense, he did not see anything special about this object. He also did not see any arrays in the surroundings. Thus, with a wave of his hand, that object fell into Xiaohua's hand. When the object entered his hand, it was slightly heavy, and where his fingers touched, there was a kind of rough feeling. Looking at the edges were very smooth, as if it had been cut off by a sharp blade. There were traces of veins on the cut section, and he could not see what material it was made of. On the black surface, where the spiritual energy fluctuations were emitted, there were a few strange-looking runes. These runes were also cut off, and it was impossible to see what it was made of. Xiaohua looked at this object and felt that it was somewhat familiar, but he could not think of anything in that moment. He passed it over to Sun Shu and the others, and when Qian Diheng also finished looking at it, he passed it over to Xiaohua. "Senior sister, can you see what this is?" Xiaohua's gaze landed on Kuan-Fian's face. Just now, regarding the information regarding the auspicious spirit talisman, Xiaohua truly understood that the heritage of the descendants of the Imperial Thunder Sect's various great thunder palaces was far from what he could compare with by reading some ancient records. "I only feel that this object is not a magic tool, and even more so not a fragment of a treasure. I can't see anything else." Kuan-Fian's eyes were also filled with confusion. "Hee, junior brother Xiao, let us go look for it again, maybe there will be more." Qian Diheng raised his eyes and looked into the distance. Chapter 1763. As far as the eye could see, there was also a large area of low vegetation, but there was no fragment in Xiaohua's hand. "Let's go." Xiaohua waved his hand and led everyone to fly towards the depths of Mingxi. Mingxi really had a huge change. At this time, they had just left the periphery of Mingxi and the wind pillar was much thicker. The hurricane that was constantly blowing made the surrounding area dizzy. The so-called east, west, north and south could not be distinguished at all. Fortunately, everyone was at the peak of qi refinement. They took out their respective magic tools, and all kinds of brilliance protected themselves. They were not afraid of this hurricane. Look! Qian Diheng had been looking down and suddenly, like a child who saw a new toy, he pointed and shouted. Sure enough, on the ground about 4 zhang in front, there was a protrusion on the ground. On the side, there were 2 pieces of the same black fragment. Xiaohua held the fragment in his hand, and compared it with the fragment just now. It was obviously the same thing. However, the texture between the 3 did not match. They were not connected together. Strange. Xiaohua also gave these 3 items to Qian Diheng while he himself stood in the air. His eyes were fixed on the 1-foot-long invisible space crack about 1 zhang in front of him. He seemed to be lost in thought. After a while, Kuan-Fian passed the 3 fragments to Xiaohua. Xiaohua took it and turned the 3 fragments over. He looked carefully and thought. So it was like this. However, I still don't know where this fragment fell from. Junior brother Xiao, did you find anything? Sun Shu saw Xiaohua's expression and said with a smile. Haha, senior brother Qian, take out the 2 spirit stones that were torn apart by the space crack. Xiaohua smiled and said to Qian Diheng. What do you want my spirit stones for? Qian Diheng stared blankly. However, when he saw Xiaohua take the spirit stone and compare it to the fragment, he immediately realized something and said in disbelief. Could it be that this fragment was torn apart by a space crack? Haha, senior sisters, take a look. Xiaohua smiled and passed the spirit stones and fragments to Kuan Feiyan. Kuan Feiyan took a look, nodded slightly and said, "As expected, they are all smooth. Although I cannot be sure that they were torn apart by spatial cracks, but under the heavens, in this world, there are many magic tools that can cut apart spirit stones and fragments." Qian Diheng said unwillingly. "But how many can there be in the netherworld?" Sun Shu said with a smile. At this moment, the rapidly spinning hunting conch above Sun Shu's head suddenly slowed down. The swaying blood-red color became longer, and at the same time, the hunting conch's phantom emerged from the hunting conch again. It swayed slightly in the hurricane. Great! Sun Shu's face lit up with ecstasy when he saw this. He pointed his finger and said anxiously, "Let's go." Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Sun Shu's figure flew into the air along with the searching conch's phantom. Fortunately, although the searching conch's phantom was in the same direction as the spatial crack, it was about 3 meters away from the spatial crack, so it could be considered safe. Xiaohua breathed a sigh of relief and quickly flew to Sun Shu's side. Qian Diheng and Kuan Feiyan were equally surprised and carefully followed behind Xiaohua. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, during which there were several spatial cracks, but they were all outside the searching conch's route. Xiaohua did not remind them, but what made Xiaohua uneasy was that the dark fragments they saw before were increasing in number, and they were all near the spatial cracks. At the beginning, everyone was still interested in collecting them, but after seeing many of them, they already knew that these fragments were not precious, so they did not look at them anymore. Xiaohua just kept the fragments and did not examine them carefully. Ouch! While they were walking, the searching conch fell from the air again, and Sun Shu could not help but exclaim again. Fortunately, after the searching conch's failure last time, although everyone's expression changed, they were still calm. Look! Qian Diheng, who was a little impatient, flew another 3 meters forward and pointed his finger and shouted, "There! There seems to be a lot of fragments." After saying that, Qian Diheng flew forward first. Damn! Xiaohua had just closed his delirium eye and wanted to use the exquisite leaf sutra to recover some of the Buddha's Sarira's exhaustion. Seeing that Qian Diheng was flying in the direction of the invisible spatial cracks, he could not help but turn pale with fright. Xiaohua did not have time to think and used the awakening lightning escape, his figure fluttering in the wind, and like lightning, he rushed towards Qian Diheng. But Qian Diheng was also flying very fast, and the spatial cracks were also very close. Xiaohua did not have time to catch him, and could only fiercely hit him from the side. Ouch! Qian Diheng was also a Qi refining stage 12 cultivator. How could he not notice? Feeling Xiaohua's lightning-fast momentum, although he knew in his heart that Xiaohua didn't have any malicious intent, his body involuntarily wanted to react. However, just as he raised his arm, Xiaohua crashed into him. An unparalleled force sent Qian Diheng flying, and even his mind was confused for a moment. Looking at Xiaohua again, after sending Qian Diheng flying, he took an extremely strange posture in midair. His feet were stepping on the void, but it also seemed like he was stepping on solid ground. His figure continuously swayed, obviously trying to avoid something. And just as Xiaohua's figure stabilized, he immediately flew towards the direction Qian Diheng was flying. Because Qian Diheng was like a drunkard, falling down from the sky. Fortunately, Xiaohua reached out to support Qian Diheng. Qian Diheng immediately woke up and said angrily, "Junior brother, what are you doing?" "Hee." Xiaohua scratched his head and said with a smile, "Why are you so anxious after seeing the treasure? Why didn't you say anything to me? We should enjoy blessings and endure hardships together." Saying that, without waiting for Qian Diheng's reply, he flew past the spatial cracks and flew towards the direction Qian Diheng pointed at. "You bastard!" Hearing Xiaohua's brainless words, Qian Diheng almost jumped up and shouted. This brother also did not intend to take all of them. "You also collected so many of these fragments along the way." This before Qian Diheng could finish his words, he stood foolishly in midair. Above his right hand, the Taoist robe on his right arm was already damaged, and half of it had already been cut off. Ah, my Taoist robe is a magic treasure. Could it be that there was another invisible spatial crack just now? Qian Diheng was dumbfounded. using his divine sense to scan the surroundings, that half of the Taoist robe had already been blown away without a trace by the hurricane. In an instant, Qian Diheng's back was covered in a layer of cold sweat. The magic treasure he was most proud of was like silk in front of a spatial crack. Just now, if not for Xiaohua's collision, he would have already become a corpse, right? Come quickly, senior brother Qian. Xiaohua's cheers came from the front again. This little brother knows what this fragment is. Chapter 1764. Qian Diheng anxiously and gratefully flew to Xiaohua's side. In front of him was a pile of black fragments. But this time the fragments weren't as small as the last time. Or rather, they weren't fragments but several large pieces. This is a puppet? Qian Diheng was naturally experienced and knowledgeable. Looking at the shape of the several large pieces, he immediately understood and shouted. Yes, Xiaohua said with a smile. Little brother just felt that it was somewhat familiar, but I didn't think that these fragments were actually from a puppet. Of course, the several large fragments in front of them were in the shape of a human. It seemed that they were cut by the space crack that Qian Diheng encountered just now. The entire fragments were scattered on the ground, so it wasn't difficult to recognize. Why are there puppets here? Kuan-Fian and Sun-Shu also flew over and asked curiously. Puppets have always been rare in our country of Xi. There isn't a sect that specializes in refining puppets. It seems that in the entire Donrain continent, only the puppet sect in the north of Meng country has the ability to refine puppets? Puppet sect? Qian Diheng shook his head slightly. I heard that puppet sect met with some disaster hundreds of years ago, and was destroyed by a mysterious cultivator. Yes, because of puppet sect's destruction, there are fewer and fewer puppets in Donrain continent. Sun-Shu nodded. I didn't expect to see a puppet in this dark mystery. I don't know when this puppet was left here. Xiaohua picked up a large piece of the puppet's remains and said in a low voice. But before his voice died away, a thought flashed through his mind. Yeah, since this puppet was torn apart when it was passing through the space crack, someone must have been exploring the space. Since that person was exploring the space, and was going in the same direction as we were looking for Zhong Yaolu, then, was that person looking for Zhong Yaolu as well? Moreover, this dark mystery only changed a few days ago. This invisible space crack also appeared recently. The person with the puppet must have just arrived a few days ago. Maybe he came in before the disciples of Shanghua sect surrounded the entrance to dark mystery. Or maybe it was because this person came in that the disciples of Shanghua sect and the other three sects knew that there were treasures in dark mystery. When Xiaohua thought of this, he suddenly raised his head. As expected, Sun-Shu, Kuan-Fian and Qian Diheng also thought of this and raised their heads in shock. Sister Sun Qian Diheng couldn't help but ask, about Zhong Yaoru. Do thunder controlling sect? Oh no, puppet school disciples know about it too? You're asking me, but who should I ask? Sun-Shu immediately replied. I also thought that only the disciples of our Imperial Thunder sect knew about this. Maybe it's just that the path is the same, but the things we're looking for are different. Kuan-Fian said in a low voice as he looked at the countless gigantic wind pillars in front of them. Let's go. No matter who they are, since they're already here, there's no need to think too much about it. We'll meet them sooner or later. At this moment, Xiaohua had already made up his mind. He waved his hand, and the remains of the puppets were sucked into the space. Sun-Shu's searching snail still couldn't be used, so he flew behind Xiaohua. Kuan-Fian flew a little slower and came to Qian Diheng's side and asked in a low voice, Junior brother Qian, what happened just now? Why did junior brother Xiao suddenly bump into you? Nothing. Qian Diheng glanced at Kuan-Fian and said with a smile. Junior brother Xiao was blown away by the wind, and was flying around like a headless fly. He just happened to bump into me. TCH, Kuan-Fian rolled his eyes at Qian Diheng and sped up. Hee, Qian Diheng said in a low voice. What? Do you want to know a man's secret? I won't tell you. While speaking, he secretly looked at his Taoist robe and also flew away. Moving forward, it was incomparably smooth again. Not only did the wind weaken a lot, even the space cracks didn't appear again, which made Xiaohua a little confused. But looking at Sun-Shu's face, there was a trace of joy. Seeing Xiaohua's somewhat doubtful gaze, Sun Xiu smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao, you don't know, a place like this with a stable space is extremely rare. And in this kind of place, although the space cracks exist, they must be stable. And only in this kind of stable place, the space where Zhongyao's milk is in, can exist for a long time. And we can have opportunities. I see. Xiaohua nodded and asked, so, the direction and place we came from are not wrong? It should be right. Sun Xiu nodded affirmatively. Good. Before Xiaohua's cheering stopped, the hunting snail above Sun Xiu's head flashed again, and an illusion appeared again. Haha, even Qian Diheng laughed loudly. It seemed that Zhongyao's milk was about to be obtained. The hunting snail's illusion flew extremely fast, and in the time it took to eat a meal, it actually found a flat place. The wind here seemed to have stopped, and there were obviously several wind pillars in the distance, but the strong wind caused by those wind pillars seemed to cancel each other out. There was only a slight breeze, which was strangely warm. Moreover, the ground was a little different. It was actually a little green, and the low plants on the ground also had green lines on them. This place, as soon as he arrived at this place, a slightly dense heaven and earth aura rushed to his face, unexpectedly making Xiaohua feel a burst of freshness in his mouth and nose. How could such a strange situation not make him happy? Even if he didn't know if this was the place the hunting snail was looking for, he was already 30% sure in his heart. Haha, great. Seeing this, Sun Xiu's face unconsciously showed a big smile. Qian Diheng even did a somersault in the air, smiled and said, I am indeed an extraordinary person. This is the place where I am destined to build my foundation. Such a difficult place to find. Even without the hunting snail, I still found it. If I don't build my foundation, how can I live up to heaven's love? Haha, Kuan Fian's smile was also unusual. This flat place was not big, only about 10 zhang wide. Although Xiaohua's spirit sense couldn't reach far, he could see everything as far as his eyes could see. On this flat place, except for the slightly green plants and the flat terrain, there was nothing special about it. There were also no invisible space cracks in the air. If it was placed outside of Mingxi, it would definitely be extremely ordinary, and no one would take a second look at it. Sun Xiu was happy, but seeing that the hunting snail still didn't have any reaction, he turned to Xiaohua and said, Brother Xiao, are you surprised? And a little bit. Xiaohua slightly nodded, looked around, pointed and said, If Sister Sun didn't say it, I definitely wouldn't have thought that there was Zhong Yaolu here. I would have just rested here and left immediately. Rested a bit and then left? Qian Diheng also walked over with a smile and said, We don't know how big this Mingxi is, and how many dangers there are in it. This 10-zhang-wide paradise is like an oasis in the desert. You can only find it by chance and not by searching. Brother Xiao, don't look at how easy it was for us to find it. If we didn't have the hunting snail, even if 10,000 cultivators came with us, none of them would be able to reach here safely. Indeed, Xiaohua nodded. Along the way, not to mention other things, just the space cracks alone. If not for his illusion breaker eye that could see invisible space cracks, the 4 of them would have died long ago. How could they have followed the hunting snail to this place? The hunting snail was good, but it couldn't see any space cracks. What do we do next? Xiaohua asked. Nothing else. Sun Xiu spread out her hands, showing the curves of her body, smiled and said, We just need to wait for the space cracks to appear. Brother Xiao, the space crack where Zhong Yaolu is hidden is a slightly stable space, and the area inside is also very big. This space crack will appear irregularly, and when it appears, we can go in to find Zhong Yaolu. When we find Zhong Yaolu and wait for the space crack to open, we can come out from inside. Kuan Fian explained. Sister Kuan, you actually know so much? Sun Xiu's face was a bit awkward and asked. Then, how do we find Zhong Yaolu inside? I only know how to enter the space crack, I don't know anything else. Kuan Fian pursed his lips and smiled. I also got this from Master. She only knows this much. However, she said that entering the space crack is only the first step. We only know how to find Zhong Yaolu, but we are still far away from finding Zhong Yaolu. As for where Zhong Yaolu is in the space, no one knows. Didn't the seniors of our thunder-controlling sect already get Zhong Yaolu? Xiaohua asked. Didn't they leave it as a mark? Hehe, the space crack is not stable at all, so Zhongyao Lu will not be in a fixed place. Otherwise, how could so many seniors die or return empty-handed? The joy on Qian Diheng's face gradually disappeared, and he said seriously. It's said that the space inside is even more dangerous than Mingxi. We have to be extra careful. Yes, Mingxi blocked 40% of the cultivators, and the danger inside the space blocked 55% of the cultivators. Only 5% of the cultivators have a chance to meet Zhongyao Lu. Zinshu nodded and said. Xiaohua heard and shook his head even more. Now I understand. Why is the information about Zhongyao Lu so secretive? This thing's effect is limited, and it's so dangerous. Only the disciples of our thunder-controlling sect would take the risk. Who else would come? Hehe, not necessarily. Qian Diheng raised a finger and shook it slightly. Don't forget the master of the puppet. Exactly. As long as it's a natural treasure, which one of them is easy to obtain? Kuan Fian continued. And who knows what other uses the Zhongyao milk has? Everyone discussed for a while. Then sat down cross-legged and closed their eyes to adjust their breathing, quietly waiting for the space crack to appear. Xiaohua adjusted his breath for a long time, and secretly opened his delusion-breaker Dharma eye. He saw that this place was filled with a kind of earthy yellow spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Moreover, there were extremely fine cracks in the space. Different from other places, these cracks were actually slowly rotating and moving, as if they were being pushed by the huge wind pillars around them. I see. Xiaohua understood that the space crack where Zhongyao's milk was contained might be moving in the space like these tiny space cracks. Only after a certain time would it show up in here. Chapter 1765. Shui cast a spell, and her body gradually turned over. Sun Ming looked at her with pity and withdrew her hand. Shui's long eyelashes trembled slightly. After a few hours she fell from the sky. Shui opened her eyes and immediately fell to the ground. She kowtowed and said, Thank you, master, for saving my life. Ah, Shui, get up. Sun Ming looked at her with a complicated gaze and waved her hand. Shui's body involuntarily stood up with a look of panic on her face. Sun Ming stared at Shui for a long time and said sternly, Shui, I've told you clearly. With your talent, if you cultivate step by step, it won't be difficult for you to build your foundation. It's even possible for you to reach the golden core stage. But why didn't you listen to me during this closed-door cultivation? Is this the secret method to break through the 11th level of the Qi refining stage, a secret of your Misty Mountain? Yes, Shui bit her lips and said in a low voice, I'll punish you as you wish. Why would I punish you? Sun Ming sneered. It's not like I made the decision on my own and didn't put my own future in my eyes. I know I was wrong. Shui lowered her head and muttered. Remember that you promised me before you went into closed-door cultivation that you wouldn't advance prematurely. But why did you suddenly change your mind? Not only did you advance prematurely, but you also used the secret method of the Misty Mountain? Sun Ming's eyes flashed coldly and said sternly, Don't you know that breaking through 2 levels at once, your future cultivation will be much more difficult? Shui heard and her face turned pale. She fell to the ground with a plop and tears appeared in her eyes. Master, however, Shui choked for a long time and didn't say a word. You're so stubborn. Sun Ming sneered. Isn't it just the little guy called Xiaohua from the Myriad Thunder Valley? Don't think that I don't know. Master. Shui's face turned red. She quickly waved her hand and said, This has nothing to do with Xiaohua. What do you mean nothing? Sun Ming said with a straight face. I know everything about his shady business at the Feather Immortal Assembly. I've also heard about the matter between him and Huanhua Sect's fairy Hongxia. Master. Shui was a little embarrassed. She originally thought that Sun Ming did not care about the secular affairs of the sect, let alone the miscellaneous matters. Who knew that master knew everything? This old one also knows about Xiaohua's failure to build his foundation. Sun Ming sighed and said, This time, Sun Shu went out to train. Although she didn't tell this old body clearly who she went with, how could this old body not know? If it weren't for the fact that you and Xiaohua have some sort of relationship, How could this old woman allow a rogue cultivator to taint the secrets of my Imperial Thunder Sect's lightning cultivators? Master. Xue Xue's face was abnormally hot as tears welled up in her eyes. She said gratefully, "Your disciple has failed to live up to your expectations. Not only can I not compare to Fairy Hongxia in terms of looks, my cultivation level is also much lower. If not for your disciple taking the initiative to look for him, I'm afraid you stupid girl." Sun Ming lovingly stroked Xue Xue's head and said lovingly, "Master knows that you are very strong. Daring to love and daring to hate is what Master lacked when she was young. Isn't this the reason why you attracted Xiaohua? Just as you said, if you didn't take the initiative to confess and force Xiaohua to accept you, you only had to take half a step back, and this opportunity of dual cultivation would have been gone." Master. Xue Xue was incomparably bashful, as if all her inner secrets had been seen through by Sun Ming. "Don't be afraid, child. Don't you still have your master?" Sun Ming said proudly. "Although Huanhua Sect's Fairy Hongxia has already built her foundation, with this old body here, you will catch up to her sooner or later. There is no need to be so rash. Besides, Xiaohua is my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple. You are in a favorable position, so how can you be afraid of Fairy Hongxia? Moreover, with this old body here, you only need to say a word to Myriad Thunder Valley's helplessness, and everything will fall into place. It's fine if others don't know about your rash advancement, but if they know, they will think that you are in a hurry to do dual cultivation." Master Xue Xue's face was as red as dripping blood. She shyly said in a low voice, her voice like a mosquito, "That's enough. You should adjust your breathing." Sun Ming clapped her hands and took out a thin booklet. She handed it over and said, "This is our sect's secret technique. You should carefully comprehend it. You rashly advanced 2 levels. It is truly dangerous. If you can successfully cultivate this secret technique, the after effects from just now can be eliminated by 90%. The remaining 10% is nothing to worry about. In addition, don't worry. This old body has a sense of propriety regarding the matter between you and Xiaohua." Xue Xue was delighted. She kowtowed and said, "Many thanks, Master. I actually want to see what virtue and ability this Xiaohua has to make you so infatuated." Sun Ming pretended to be angry and said, "This time, if he doesn't build his foundation, this old body master." Xue Xue was afraid that her master would say something and hurriedly interjected, "I heard senior sister Sun Shu say that this time, she also doesn't have much confidence. Don't mention Xiaohua." Sun Ming laughed a few times. She floated up and said as she walked, "It is said that Fairy Hongxia's master is Kai Qin, a fickle female cultivator. I don't know if Fairy Hongxia will be the same as her master. Farewell, Master." Xue Xue's face was filled with joy as she sent Sun Ming off. When Sun Ming's figure disappeared, Xue Xue patted her storage pouch and took out a restriction token to activate the restriction in the quiet room. She then sat down cross-legged. The secret technique of Sun Lei Palace was spread out in front of her eyes. However, Xue Xue's gaze did not fall on the booklet. Instead, she stared blankly at the sky in front of her. It was unknown what she was thinking about. After a long time, 2 drops of clear tears fell from the corners of her eyes. In the Huanhua Sect's cold ice valley, the bleak, biting cold and knife-like wind wreaked havoc in a 1 li wide and 10 li long valley. On the valley's stone walls, there was a layer of ice that was as solid as a boulder and as transparent as a mirror. The climate in the cold ice valley was abnormal. It was completely different from the other places in the Huanhua sect. Not to mention that there had not been anyone in the cold ice valley for 100 years, even within 100 li of the valley. No one would come close for dozens of years or even hundreds of years. At this moment, in front of an exquisite cave, on a transparent platform sealed in ice, Fairy Hongxia was twisting her body into a strange posture. She was like a phoenix flying in the sky, but also like a floating cloud. One of her hands was placed on her forehead, while the other was placed on her back. Both of her hands were pinched together to form a mysterious hand seal. A faint green light flowed around her body. The path that the green light followed was not the usual meridians, but Fairy Hongxia's blood vessels. The green light not only formed a thin light shield around Fairy Hongxia's body, blocking the fierce cold wind in the cold ice valley, but also gradually gathered around Fairy Hongxia's body. After a few years of cultivation, it had gradually condensed into the shape of a phoenix. However, this phoenix formed by the green light was so green that it was oozing out. What was even stranger was that on Fairy Hongxia's forehead, there was also a small, lifelike green phoenix pattern. However, this green phoenix pattern on Fairy Hongxia's gradually turning green face seemed a little rigid. Chapter 1766. Not to mention that Xiaohua and the others were sitting in meditation inside the dark mystery, waiting for the space crack to appear. Somewhere in the dark mystery, near a wind pillar, there were several 12th-layer qi refining cultivators standing quietly. These cultivators were dressed differently, and their ages were also different. However, their bodies were suffused with a faint brilliance, resisting the huge attractive force of the rotating wind pillar. Moreover, these people's eyes were burning with passion as they stared at the huge wind pillar. This wind pillar was several tens of feet in size. The rotating hurricane stirred up the space, making it impossible to see everything inside the wind pillar. However, at the bottom of the wind pillar, a light blue brilliance was faintly flickering. It was clearly the outline of an orchid. Strangely, this light blue orchid wasn't torn apart by the hurricane. Instead, it quietly floated, and its brilliance became increasingly bright. After a moment, a slightly older male cultivator muttered, This is the Dark Yulan? The legendary treasure that is even more mystical than the Foundation Establishment pill? Fellow Taoist Feng is wrong. A similarly older female cultivator next to him smiled and said, The Dark Yulan is even more mystical than the exquisite grass. Using the juice of the Dark Yulan to refine the Foundation Establishment pill, only one drop is needed, and the Foundation Establishment pill's attribute will immediately change. The previous Foundation Establishment pill could only help the true qi in the meridians condense into true essence, but this variant Foundation Establishment pill can directly condense true qi into true essence. You say, isn't this a treasure bestowed to us peak qi refining cultivators by the heavens? Haha. Exactly. Another thin cultivator with a slightly pale face twirled the short beard under his chin and smiled. The key point is that we traveled here together to look for an opportunity to reach Foundation Establishment. Unexpectedly, we encountered such a useful treasure, which shows that our opportunity to reach Foundation Establishment has arrived. Fellow Taoist Ming is right. That fellow Taoist Feng nodded and said, There's one more thing. This Dark Yulan is not the main ingredient of the Foundation Establishment pill. Every time we refine a cauldron of Foundation Establishment pills, we only need one drop. This Dark Yulan is enough for us and the junior brothers that we summoned. AI. If it weren't for the fact that we don't have enough confidence to take the underworld orchid out of the wind pillar, we wouldn't have needed to inform our fellow sect brothers and sisters. Once this information was sent out, it certainly increased our chances of success, but it also leaked the news. It is said that many disciples of other sects outside the Dark Insight have also received the news and are attacking the entrance of the Dark Insight. Fellow Taoist Ming sighed and said, This Dark Yulan orchid was discovered by the disciples of our 3 sections. What qualifications do other people have to obtain it? The female cultivator shrieked. Those disciples are nothing but chickens and pottery dogs. Kill them all. It's not that easy. Another cultivator said, Our sect's disciple has already come to report that a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect named Xiaohua used a secret technique and repeatedly took out a magic weapon to tear apart the defensive line of our 3 sect's disciples. He and 3 other disciples of the Imperial Thunder sect were the first to enter the netherworld. This disciple called Xiaohua doesn't want to live anymore? The female cultivator was shocked. How can we aura refining disciples use magic weapons so many times? How can the meridians withstand it? That's right. This guy had just broken through and immediately fell from the sky. He must have been seriously injured. The cultivator sneered and said, It's a pity that our 7 skills sect's disciples are doing their best to resist the enemy's attack. Otherwise, they would have been killed on the spot. Even if they don't die on the spot, they won't be able to reach Foundation establishment in the future. The female cultivator sneered. As long as we guard the entrance of the dark insight, for people won't be able to create any big waves. Unfortunately, Xiaohua tore apart the defensive line of our 7 skills sex disciples. The other disciples couldn't save him in time. Several hours ago, over 100 aura refining cultivators from other sects had already entered the dark insight. The cultivator said regretfully. The female cultivator was startled at first, then she said disdainfully, "The dark insight is so big. How many people can reach this place? Not to mention that the dark insight has undergone some unknown changes. Spatial cracks have appeared without order. Out of 100 people who enter, no more than 10 will be able to leave. On the other hand, our 3 sects disciples have to use a secret technique to communicate. This wind pillar is just as fellow Taoist Feng said. It's actually weakened." As the female cultivator spoke, her face suddenly lit up with joy and she pointed at the wind pillar in front of her. Within the wind pillar, the hurricane was still surging violently. Even its momentum hadn't weakened in the slightest. However, everyone had taken out their magic treasures or magic tools to resist the wind pillar's rampage. Every change in the wind pillar was clearly visible to them. The female cultivator's words were all understood by everyone's magic power consumption. Thus, they all excitedly looked at the faint blue light within the wind pillar. However, what caused these peak chi refinement cultivators to blush with shame was that outside of the wind pillar, in the air 1,000 feet away, there was a 3-inch black dot flying in circles along with the air currents. If one could see it clearly, it was a small bird-shaped puppet. Thunder Control Sect's Thunder Palace, a small palace. Within a quiet room, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth suddenly gathered, almost forming a gale. This gale lasted for the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Not only did it not show any signs of weakening, it became even stronger. There was a restriction outside the quiet room, but at this moment, it began to flicker with light. Not good. Which junior martial sister's cultivation went awry? The disturbance caused by the restriction immediately attracted the attention of several 10th-layer chi refining female cultivators. One of the female cultivators glanced at the jade medallion above the silent room, and hastily clapped her hand, sending out a thunder sound-transmitting talisman. Wang, the restriction of the quiet room gradually began to let out a slight rumble, as if to attract the attention of others. Sunzhou, a gentle voice sounded from afar. When the female cultivator who sent out the signal turned her head, a golden core cultivator had already appeared behind her. Greetings to martial ancestor Sun Ming. The female cultivators quickly saluted, and Sunzhou quickly said, "Martial ancestor, the one inside the quiet room seems to be junior martial sister Shui. She's AI this old one knows. You all can go on patrol." Sun Ming's spirit sense swept over, and her face was a bit gloomy. She waved her sleeve and said, "Yes." The female cultivators didn't dare to say more, and quickly left after saluting. Sun Ming's bright eyes turned, and with a point of her hand, she used her mana to open the restriction of the quiet room, and her figure disappeared into the quiet room. In the quiet room, Shue's entire body was upside down in midair, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth swarmed in, gathering into her meridians. However, at this time, Shue's face was crimson red, and her body seemed to have grown by 30%. Her 2 hands were doing their best to form hand signs, but those 2 hands were trembling, and were unable to form. Silly child. Sun Ming's face was full of regret, and her figure flew in front of Shui, and she slapped her hand, which was where Shue's dantian was located. Once Sun Ming slapped, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was gathering in immediately stopped, and Shue's hands also stopped trembling, and she began to form hand signs. Chapter 1767. Shui cast a spell, and her body gradually turned over. Sun Ming looked at her with pity and withdrew her hand. Shue's long eyelashes trembled slightly. After a few hours, she fell from the sky. Shui opened her eyes and immediately fell to the ground. She kowtowed and said, "Thank you, master, for saving my life." "Ah, Shui, Get up. Sun Ming looked at her with a complicated gaze and waved her hand. Xue Xue's body involuntarily stood up with a look of panic on her face. Sun Ming stared at Xue Xue for a long time and said sternly, Xue Xue, I've told you clearly. With your talent, if you cultivate step by step, it won't be difficult for you to build your foundation. It's even possible for you to reach the golden core stage. But why didn't you listen to me during this closed-door cultivation? Is this the secret method to break through the 11th level of the Qi refining stage, a secret method of your Misty Mountain? Yes, Xue Xue bit her lips and said softly, I'll accept any punishment. Why should I punish you? Sun Ming sneered. It's not like I made the decision on my own and didn't put my own future in my eyes. I know I was wrong. Xue Xue lowered her head and muttered. Humph. Remember what you promised me before you went into closed-door cultivation, that you wouldn't advance prematurely. But why did you suddenly change your mind? Not only did you advance prematurely, but you also used the secret method of the Misty Mountain? Sun Ming's eyes flashed coldly and said sternly, Don't you know that breaking through 2 levels at once, your future cultivation will be much more difficult? Xue Xue heard and her face turned pale. She fell to the ground with a plop and tears appeared in her eyes. Master, however, Xue Xue choked for a long time and didn't say a word. Humph, you're so stubborn. Sun Ming sneered. Isn't it just the little guy called Xiaohua from the Myriad Thunder Valley? Don't think that I don't know. Master. Xue Xue's face turned red. She quickly waved her hand and said, This has nothing to do with Xiaohua. What do you mean nothing? Sun Ming said sternly. I know everything about his shady business at the Feather Immortal Gathering. I've also heard about the matter between him and the Ruanhua sect's fairy Wuxia. Master. Xue Xue was a little embarrassed. She originally thought that Sun Ming did not care about the secular affairs of the sect, let alone the miscellaneous matters. Who knew that Master knew everything? This old one also knows about Xiaohua's failure to build his foundation. Sun Ming sighed and said, This time, Sun Shu went out to train. Although she didn't tell this old body clearly who she went with, how could this old body not know? If it weren't for the fact that you and Xiaohua have some sort of relationship, how could this old woman allow a rogue cultivator to taint the secrets of my Imperial Thunder Sect's lightning cultivators? Master. Xue Xue's face was abnormally hot as tears welled up in her eyes. She said gratefully, Your disciple has failed to live up to your expectations. Not only can I not compare to Fairy Wuxia in terms of looks, my cultivation level is also much lower. If not for your disciple taking the initiative to look for him, I'm afraid you stupid girl. Sun Ming lovingly stroked Xue Xue's head and said lovingly, Master knows that you are very strong. Daring to love and daring to hate is what Master lacked when she was young. Isn't this the reason why you attracted Xiaohua? Just as you said, if you didn't take the initiative to confess and force Xiaohua to accept you, you only had to take half a step back and this opportunity of dual cultivation would have been gone. Master. Xue Xue was incomparably bashful, as if all her inner secrets had been seen through by Sun Ming. Don't be afraid, child. Don't you still have your master? Sun Ming said proudly. Although Ruanhua sect's fairy Wuxia has already built her foundation, with this old body here, you will catch up to her sooner or later. There is no need to be so rash. Besides, Xiaohua is my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciple. You are in a favorable position, so how can you be afraid of fairy Wuxia? Moreover, with this old body here, you only need to say a word to Myriad Thunder Valley's helplessness, and everything will fall into place. It's fine if others don't know about your rash advancement, but if they know, they will think that you are in a hurry to do dual cultivation. Master Xue Xue's face was as red as dripping blood. She shyly said in a low voice, her voice like a mosquito. That's enough. You should adjust your breathing. Sun Ming clapped her hands and took out a thin booklet. She handed it over and said, This is our sect's secret technique. Carefully comprehend it. You rashly advanced 2 levels. It is indeed dangerous. If you can successfully cultivate this secret technique, the after effects from just now can be eliminated by 90%. The remaining 10% is nothing to worry about. In addition, don't worry. This old body knows what to do about you and Xiaohua. Xue Xue was delighted. She kowtowed and said, "Many thanks, master." "Humph, I actually want to see what virtue and ability this Xiaohua has to make you so infatuated." Sun Ming pretended to be angry and said, "This time if he doesn't build his foundation, this old body master." Xue Xue was afraid that her master would say something and hurriedly said, "I heard Senior Marshal's sister Sun Shu say that this time, she also doesn't have much confidence." "Don't mention Xiaohua." Sun Ming laughed a few times. She floated up and said as she walked, "It is said that Fairy Hongxia's master is Kai Qin, a fickle female cultivator. I don't know if Fairy Hongxia will be the same as her master. Farewell, master." Xue Xue's face showed joy as she sent Sun Ming off. When Sun Ming's figure disappeared, Xue Xue patted her storage pouch and took out a restriction token to activate the restriction in the quiet room. She then sat down cross-legged. The secret technique of Sun Lei Palace was spread out in front of her. However, Xue Xue's gaze did not fall on the small book. Instead, she looked blankly at the sky in front of her. It was unknown what she was thinking about. After a long time, 2 drops of clear tears fell from the corners of her eyes. In the Huanhua sect, in the Valley of Ice, the bleak, biting cold, and knife-like wind wreaked havoc in a valley that was 1 li wide and several li long. On the stone walls of the valley, there was a layer of ice that was as solid as a boulder and as transparent as a mirror. The climate of this Valley of Ice was abnormal. It was completely different from the other places in the Huanhua sect. Not to mention that there had been no one in the Valley of Ice for 100 years. Even within 100 li of the valley, no one would come close for dozens of years, or even hundreds of years. This cold wind was different from other places. Within the hurricane, there was an aura of the netherworld. There were even blood threads that were hard to see with the naked eye flying out. However, the moment these blood threads appeared, they immediately turned into ice and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, in front of an exquisite cave, on a transparent platform sealed in ice, Fairy Hongxia was twisting her body into a strange posture. She was like a phoenix flying in the sky, but also like a floating cloud. One of her hands was placed on her forehead, while the other was placed on her back. Both of her hands were pinched together to form a mysterious hand seal. A faint green light flowed around her body. The path that the green light followed was not the usual meridians, but Fairy Hongxia's blood vessels. The green light not only formed a thin light shield around Fairy Hongxia's body, blocking the fierce cold wind in the Valley of Ice, but also gradually gathered around Fairy Hongxia's body. After several years of cultivation, it had gradually condensed into the shape of a phoenix. Chapter 1768. However, the phoenix formed by the green light was so green that it was oozing out. What was even stranger was that on Fairy Hongxia's forehead, there was also a small, lifelike green phoenix pattern. However, this green phoenix pattern on Fairy Hongxia's gradually turning green face seemed a little rigid at this moment. A strong gust of wind blew past. The green phoenix swayed a few times, as if it was about to be blown to pieces. Fairy Hongxia's eyelashes trembled slightly, and there was a strong sense of hesitation between her brows. However, this hesitation was immediately blown away by the strong wind. Fairy Hongxia's hands trembled continuously, as if the phoenix was nodding. As Fairy Hongxia's hand seals were formed, the green light around Fairy Hongxia shone brightly. The phoenix celestial body seemed to have received a source of energy, and it expanded rapidly. Not only did the feathers become clearer, even the head and plume of the phoenix celestial body appeared. Furthermore, the phoenix celestial body gradually rose in the strong wind, and it actually showed signs of breaking away from Fairy Hongxia's body. After a short while, a crisp phoenix cry resounded through the heavens and earth, and the strong wind in the entire Valley of Ice froze. Fairy Hongxia's phoenix celestial body spread its wings, its head raised high, and a pair of blurry phoenix eyes flashed with a cold light that looked down on the world. The celestial body trembled rapidly and broke away from Fairy Hongxia's body. However, the moment the celestial body broke away from Fairy Hongxia's body, the green light around Fairy Hongxia's body flickered and gradually dimmed. Fairy Hongxia's face was filled with despair. Jie. The phoenix celestial body also cried out, and the arrogant eyes of the phoenix also showed the signs of nirvana. Xue Xue's chi deviation was in the Sunlei Palace, and there was a junior sister from the Imperial Thunder sect who reported it, and Master Sun Ming who helped her. However, where was Fairy Hongxia? How could anyone discover her in this uninhabited valley of ice? The green light around Fairy Hongxia's body hardened, forming a layer of green ice. Bit by bit, it froze Fairy Hongxia's body from the surface. However, within Fairy Hongxia's body, there was a little bit of heat, burning more and more. Darling Xiao and Fairy Red Dawn's gradually blurring consciousness, there was no Kai Wuxia, no Kai Haifeng and the others. Instead, there was Xiaohua's figure. Xiaohua's slender phoenix eyes similarly had an aura that could overlook the world. This aura made Fairy Red Dawn feel incomparably close to him, giving birth to an unparalleled attraction. It made her feel like a moth flying into a flame. Fairy Hongxia finally understood why she fell in love with Xiaohua at first sight. Netherworld. Xiaohua and the others sat cross-legged on a small flat area that was warm and tranquil, and they were completely unaware of the numerous unexpected events that had occurred outside the Netherworld. SSSSS. The sound of sand falling to the ground grew louder and louder, like the noise of silkworms chewing on mulberry leaves. Great! Sun Shu was the first to open her eyes. She saw that the searching conch that she had been using all this time had begun to slowly turn. The faint red screw spun round and round, and the illusion no longer appeared. The entire searching conch flew towards a place on the other side of the flat area. Needless to say, that place was the place where the sound was coming from. When the searching conch came to a stop in the air, the screw stopped spinning. The sound was like the sound of waves crashing against the shore, gradually turning into a roar. Xiaohua and the others were naturally overjoyed. This strange phenomenon was far from the spatial rifts that they had encountered earlier. There was definitely something strange going on. Indeed, at the place where the searching conch had stopped, a small yellow dot of light suddenly appeared. This dot of light did not stop at all. It gradually elongated and widened. In the time it took to brew a cup of tea, a 1 zhang long and 3 qi wide spatial rift had appeared in the air. Gusts of cool wind blew out from that spatial rift. That wind was so rich in natural aura that it was at least a few times richer than the natural aura in this flat area. Xiaohua scanned the spatial rift with his spiritual sense and suddenly understood. The natural aura in this flat area was coming out from this spatial rift, which was why the vegetation on this flat area was so abnormal. Only such rich natural aura could produce Zhongyao milk. Quick, Sun Shu first put away the searching conch. Then, as soon as she saw the spatial rift taking shape, she urged Xiaohua, then patted her hand and took out a shiny talisman from her storage bag. She handed it to Xiaohua and said, "Junior brother Xiao, please stick this talisman on the edge of the spatial rift." Yes, Xiaohua knew that Sun Shu had used up a bit of his spiritual power. Although he had been meditating for a few days, he had been using the searching conch all this time. Therefore, he did not refuse and activated his spiritual power. The talisman emitted a bright light green light and gradually enlarged. It only stopped after absorbing 30% of Xiaohua's spiritual power. Seeing that the talisman had expanded to about 1 qi, Sun Shu was clearly surprised. She looked at Xiaohua with a complicated gaze, then looked at the spatial rift and said, "Junior brother, this spatial rift is about to shrink. You don't have to use all of your spiritual power." And, seeing that the spatial rift was indeed shrinking rapidly, much faster than before, Xiaohua agreed and waved his hand. The talisman flickered and landed on the edge of the spatial rift. Immediately, the spatial rift stopped shrinking. "Let's go." Sun Shu waved his hand and entered first. Qian Dihing and Kuan Fian, who had been silent all this time, looked at each other and entered one after another. Xiaohua was the last to enter. Just as Xiaohua entered, at the edge of the spatial rift, the light green light flickered, and then separated from it. It turned back into a talisman and landed on Sun Shu's hand, who had been waiting for a long time. This Xiaohua landed in the spatial rift and immediately felt a heavy feeling on his shoulder. It was quite uncomfortable. Moreover, the spatial rift was yellow. Although he did not know where the light came from, it was like there was a layer of fog. The naked eye could not see far. He tried to release his spiritual sense and Buddhist consciousness. Just like Mingxi, they could not go very far. They could only reach within 10 zhang. Xiaohua could not help but frown. Sun Shu took the talisman and handed it to Kuan Fian, saying, "Senior Sister Kuan, this time I will have to trouble you to activate this talisman and strike it near the spatial rift. I can use this talisman to return here later." Okay. Kuan Fian obeyed and struck the talisman. Sun Shu patted his storage bag and took out 3 light green-yellow talismans. He handed them to the 3 people and said, "The time we have to search for Zhongyao milk is limited. This is a child talisman. After 6 hours, no matter if we find Zhongyao milk or not, we have to activate the child talisman. The child talisman will bring us here." Say only 6 hours. Qian Diheng held. "We worked so hard to get to this spatial rift, but we only have 6 hours. When they were resting on the flat ground, Sun Shu had already told them about the things they needed to pay attention to. Xiaohua already knew the time limit and smiled. "If senior brother Qian is willing, then you can stay here for a long time. Not only will you have Zhongyao milk, you will also have rich earth attribute spiritual energy. You can cultivate until you reach the Yuanying stage before coming out." "I have a thunder attribute physique. Why would I cultivate here?" Qian Diheng curled his lips and said, "Moreover, we don't know where this spatial rift is usually. All the cultivators who entered the spatial rift and didn't get out in time all died. I have no reason to take that risk." Then let's go." Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Senior brothers, where do you all go? I will go last." "All right." Qian Diheng glanced at it and casually pointed, "Then I will go there." After saying that, Qian Diheng didn't fly over. He patted his hand and Ming Hao's halberd appeared in the air. "I will go in this direction." Kuan Fian didn't stand on ceremony and found a direction opposite to Qian Diheng and hurriedly left. Junior brother Xiao, Sun Shu waited for the 2 of them to leave before saying in a low voice, "This spatial rift doesn't seem dangerous, but in reality, there are many things that we cultivators can't understand. If we are not careful, we can be buried here. Junior brother must be careful." "I know." Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "Senior sister Sun, which direction do you want to go?" Sun Shu didn't pay attention to him and looked straight at Xiaohua. She seemed to have some desire. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but when she reached her mouth, she changed her words. Actually, junior brother's power is really beyond I's expectations. That talisman just now. Senior sister Kuan could only activate it to half a foot in size. Hearing Sun Shu talk about some irrelevant things, Xiaohua already understood that Sun Shu's cultivation was stronger than Shue's. Along the way, she had a tacit understanding with him. However, he and Fairy Hongxia were close. Although they weren't as straightforward as Shue, the feeling of their hearts being connected was far from what others could understand. Other than Fairy Hongxia, Xiaohua had somewhat rashly accepted Shue. In his heart, he originally felt that he owed her. How could he provoke another female cultivator? Although he knew that Sun Shu had deep feelings for him, Xiaohua still smiled deeply at her and said, "Senior sister, we don't have much time. Let's hurry and find Zhongyao Lao. I think Shue should be coming out of seclusion in Sun Lei Palace soon, right?" Sun Shu's face suddenly turned red, then pale. She bit her lips and said in a low voice, "I have always envied junior sister Shue. She is straightforward. She pursues according to her own preferences. Even if she suffers a setback, she knows where she failed. Unlike us, who are vague and don't dare to understand. Even if there is a chance in front of us, we will still miss it. Sigh, after this parting, although it will be 6 hours, I'm afraid we may not meet again. There are some things that I have always wanted to say, but I can't. I always feel that there will be a long time in the future, but in the end, it is the time to say it." Xiaohua's heart was filled with an indescribable feeling. He also sighed. Some things can be said, but some things can't be said casually. "Ha ha ha, I understand." Sun Shu raised her eyebrows and laughed. "I will go this way. Junior brother, I wish you great fortune and great fortune. I hope you can get Zhongyao Lao soon. If I get it, I will definitely give senior sister 10%. Xiaohua said without hesitation. Sun Shu smiled bitterly. "Junior brother Xiao, Don't be so nice to others. After saying that, she turned and left. However, after taking 2 steps, she turned back and said, Junior brother, remember, don't use the Earth Escape Talisman. This space is within the chaotic netherworld storm, and there are spatial cracks all over the ground. Chapter 1769. Yes, I understand. Xiaohua said bitterly. This zhongyao milk is really hard to find. There is no zhongyao milk in the air. There is no zhongyao milk on the ground. There is only condensation at the bottom of the trenches. We can't go underground to find it. Looking at Xiaohua's exaggerated bitter smile, Sun Shu felt an unspeakable pain in her heart. She just wanted this trip to be as long as possible. Seeing Sun Shu standing there in a daze, Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, I'm leaving. Senior sister, be careful too. Sun Shu came back to her senses and nodded sadly. She walked forward reluctantly. Xiaohua walked a few steps and waited for a moment. After releasing his spiritual sense, he activated his Buddhist consciousness and opened his delirium breaker Dharma eye. Inside his Dharma eye, there were yellow dots of light. It was the brilliance of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There were very few lights of other colors in this space. Just as Xiaohua was walking slowly, his Dharma eye suddenly saw a dozen or so slightly bright dots of light in the air. Could this be zhongyao milk? Xiaohua was overjoyed and flew up. However, just as he flew up, he was surprised. The earth element spiritual energy in this space was so thick that not only did it press down on his body, it was also very strenuous for him to fly. How could Xiaohua be compared to an ordinary cultivator? He had always been the master of breaking through with force. Why would he care about this little bit of weight? Xiaohua still effortlessly flew up into the air and put those tens of thumb-sized beads into his bag. Looking at those thumb-sized beads, Xiaohua seemed to be lost in thought. This bead was crystal clear and had a yellow color. It was the essence of earth power, not the zhongyao milk. What a pity, I have a fire element physique and also cultivate a fire element cultivation method. Xiaohua giggled as he kept the beads. He thought to himself, I can't use these earth elemental essences. Otherwise, the earth elemental cultivation method jade scroll I got from the spirit husbandry sect disciple last time would be equivalent to several years of cultivation outside, if I were to cultivate for 6 hours in this space. Previously, when Xiaohua killed 4 spirit husbandry sect disciples, he left behind a foundation establishment realm cultivation technique. Sun Shu and the others didn't care about it, so Xiaohua had no choice but to take it himself. Now that he saw that the earth element spirit energy in the space was abnormally dense, he couldn't help but sigh. After putting away the earth condensed pearl, Xiaohua landed on the ground and used his transcendence vision to observe the underground. Although his transcendence vision could only penetrate several zhang deep into the ground, there were many spatial cracks and a lot of scarlet and sticky things. With just a glance, one could tell that it was not something easy to deal with. Without Sun Shu's warning, Xiaohua would not have casually used Earth Escape. The space seemed to be very big, and one's eyes and spiritual sense couldn't go far. Xiaohua was like a headless fly, unable to distinguish north from south. Although he said that he was going forward, the ground was sometimes high and sometimes low, and there were no obvious signs. After a short while, Xiaohua was completely lost. Perhaps it was because the spiritual qi of the earth was very rich. There were no plants in the space, let alone spirit beasts. Along the way, there was only earth and stones. These stones were very hard. Xiaohua was very interested in them at first, thinking that they were some kind of spirit stones. Unfortunately, after seeing a few of them, he even used his devil hammer to smash a few of them. However, the spiritual qi inside these stones was much more than ordinary stones, even inferior to low-grade spirit stones. However, Xiaohua had the illusion breaker Dharma eye, so he collected a lot of earth condensed pearls along the way. As he walked, a deep gully appeared in front of him. Great, could it be that there is zhongyao milk? Xiaohua was overjoyed. He used his spiritual sense to scan the area, and took out the cloud suppressing seal to protect himself. Then he opened his illusion breaker Dharma eye. The spiritual energy in the space was abundant, And the cloud-suppressing seal's aura was different. The rosy clouds were clearly longer than outside, and the spiritual energy it absorbed was also more. The gully wasn't very deep, it was only about 10 meters long. Following the gully's direction, they walked another 30 meters before reaching the end. Xiaohua was slightly disappointed in his heart. He understood that Zhongyao milk shouldn't exist in such a shallow place. What is this? At the end of the gully, there was an inch-sized earth-condensed flower on the stone wall on his left. The flower was in the shape of a hexagonal crystal, sparkling and translucent. It was many times more beautiful than the earth-condensed pearl that Xiaohua had obtained before. Unfortunately, the spiritual energy condensed by this earth-condensed flower was much less than that of the earth-condensed pearl, so he couldn't see it clearly with his illusion breaker Dharma eye. Great! Xiaohua carefully pulled out the earth-condensed flower and stared at it for a long time. He sighed in his heart. Although the illusion breaker Dharma eye could see the essence of spiritual energy, it could see all kinds of spiritual energy, but it ignored the appearance of things. Although for cultivators, the essence was the most important thing. Since the Creator had already determined the different forms and appearances of all things, there must be a reason for people to admire them. Seeing a mountain as a mountain is the knowledge of the naked eye. Seeing a mountain as not a mountain is the power of the Dharma eye. Or when the Dharma eye is the naked eye, and the naked eye is the Dharma eye, I'll enter the realm of seeing a mountain as still a mountain. Haha, this young master's cultivation is still shallow. I'll slowly see a mountain as not a mountain. Xiaohua smiled and put the earth-condensed flower into his space. But at this moment, his smile froze on his face. He stared at the stone wall next to the earth-condensed flower with a trace of surprise and joy in his eyes. Next to the earth-condensed flower, there was a palm-sized mark. It looked like it was stepped on, but it also looked like it was touched. This stone wall is so hard, how could someone step on it with their feet? Even if a cultivator came here, they wouldn't touch the stone wall with their feet, right? Xiaohua frowned and pondered. Then his eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and took out the puppet wreckage that he had collected in Dark Mystery. He found a similar wreckage and compared it with the imprint. Although it's not a complete match, the size and shape are similar. This mark was probably left by a puppet, Xiaohua thought. From the Dark Mystery to the spatial crack, there were puppets walking in front. Needless to say, there must be a puppet cultivator who knew about Zhongyao Ru. The puppet fragments must have been torn apart by the spatial crack when the cultivator controlled the puppet to explore the path ahead. At the beginning, there were few fragments, but that was because the cultivator cleaned them up. In the end, it was because he didn't have time to clean them up. Since there are puppet footprints here, it means that this place should be the direction to find Zhongyao Ru. But we've already reached the end, could it be? Thinking about this, Xiaohua slightly wrinkled his brows. Just a moment ago, he had already opened his illusion breaker eye. Behind the stone wall, sure enough, it was just as Sun Shu said. After one zhang, there were only space cracks or scarlet liquid. There was simply no place to pass through. But if there is no path, the puppet wouldn't have stopped here for no reason. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and activated the exquisite leaf sutra, opening his illusion breaker eyes again. He saw that behind the stone wall where the earth-condensed flower was, the spatial cracks were rapidly rotating, causing the scarlet liquid to flow in a disorderly manner. It looked very strange, no different from what Xiaohua had seen before. Xiaohua restrained his anxiety and patiently watched. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the spatial crack suddenly slowed down, and the scarlet liquid suddenly began to rotate in a regular pattern. Just as Xiaohua's face revealed a happy expression, the scarlet liquid unexpectedly rotated into the shape of a channel, and this channel gradually expanded under the push of the spatial crack, until it was about the size of a table, then it stopped. Xiaohua opened his illusion breaker eyes and looked at the passage that was formed one zhang away. He felt an indescribable sense of absurdity in his heart. This is a natural passage? Or was it cast by an almighty person? What is behind this passage? It said that there are spatial cracks outside this space, and no one dares to go out. Since such an opportunity is in front of me, How can I not go and take a look? Xiaohua quickly made a decision. Forming a hand seal, Xiaohua took a step forward and his entire body disappeared into the stone wall, heading towards the passage that had already taken shape. The distance of 1 zhang was covered in an instant. Xiaohua didn't dare to take the risk. He originally wanted to use the cloud-suppressing seal, but he was afraid that the power of the magic treasure would destroy the passage. After thinking for a moment, he clapped his hand and the black iron needle quietly flew out. When Xiaohua's figure appeared from the stone wall, there was no scarlet thing in front of him. Instead, in front of him, there was a passage formed by a whirlwind that led straight to the distance. Oh, that scarlet thing is actually this whirlwind. No wonder people say that the wind in this place blows from the 9 heavens to the 9 underworlds. This wind is also strange. Xiaohua looked at the passage and thought to himself. The passage formed by the whirlwind was 1 zhang wide. Its periphery and surroundings were chaotic spatial cracks. Only the center of the passage, which was about 5 zhang wide, was a relatively stable place. Needless to say, if one wanted to fly through the passage, they could only go through the center. Xiaohua clapped his hand and held the tip of the devil's spear in his hand. He then controlled the black iron needle to fly in front of him and flew into the passage. The passage was very noisy, like thunder and tides. It shook Xiaohua's mind to the point that he almost fell out of the passage several times. Xiaohua was alarmed and immediately operated the Thunder Cleansing Sutra that he had no choice but to impart to it. Only then did he feel his ears and eyes become clear. Damn it, this passage isn't like it at all. Xiaohua flew for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. He saw some light in front of him and knew that he had reached the end of the passage. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. Although there aren't any powerful restrictions, this natural sound is comparable to the 10,000 Thunder Valley's 10,000 Thunder Valley. Even Ancestor Zhenqing's sound attack can't compare to it. Seeing that he had reached the end, Xiaohua released his divine sense. This place, why is it so strange? When Xiaohua's divine sense reached the outside of the passage, he immediately felt a huge force pulling his divine sense downwards. He couldn't extend his divine sense further. Go, Xiaohua controlled the black iron needle. Unexpectedly, the moment the black iron needle rushed out of the passage, it was immediately attracted by an incomparably powerful force. Xiaohua's divine sense was unable to control it at all. With a paw sound, it fell to the ground and couldn't fly anymore. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He stopped at the edge of the passage and didn't dare to move forward. Chapter 1770. Xiaohua's figure stopped at the edge of the passageway, not daring to move forward. He tried to slowly release his divine sense, and felt the suction force outside the passageway. Suddenly he came to a realization. This seems to be magnetism? A kind of magnetism that can attract everything? Magnetism was something Xiaohua had read about in the ancient records of the Imperial Thunder Sect. He never thought he would encounter it here. Magnetism is also divided into 5 elements. Different magnetism has the strongest attraction force to different elements. It is said that the most powerful magnetism can attract all 5 elements in the world, unless something not in the 5 elements is not affected by it. But how can there be something not in the 5 elements in the world? Xiaohua thought to himself. The black iron needle should be of the metal element. The magnetism here can attract metal things. But other elements can also be attracted by it, just that the attraction force is not as strong as the metal element. And the magnetism here can even absorb divine sense. I'm afraid it is a bit strange. Xiaohua paused for a moment, then opened his delirium vision again. He saw that outside the scarlet tunnel, strands of earthy yellow light were falling down like rain. Oh, I understand now. Xiaohua suddenly realized. The magnetism here is not only attractive to metal things, it is also attractive to earth element spiritual energy. Because of this, there is Zhongyao milk in this kind of place. Thinking of this, Xiaohua did not stay any longer and flew out of the tunnel. Before Xiaohua flew out of the tunnel, he first formed his heart technique into a cloud and circulated his magic power around his body, preparing to resist the magnetism force at any time. Who would have thought that when Xiaohua flew out of the tunnel, only a kind of pressure similar to the one in the space just now pressed on his shoulder, far less heavy than he imagined. Strange, Xiaohua was happy. Could it be that I am of the hidden fire element, this metal and earth element magnetism? Who? However, before Xiaohua's smiling face could be seen, that smile froze on his face. Xiaohua suddenly turned around, only to see a 10-zhong tall dark puppet had appeared behind him at some point in time, and blocked the hurricane tunnel. The dark puppet was similar to a human. It had large hands and feet, especially on its large head. Its facial features were very similar to a human's, and it looked extremely ferocious. It seemed to have been specially made by the person who made it. Oh! Xiaohua saw the dark puppet's body and already knew that this puppet was the puppet fragment he encountered when he entered the dark mystery. Could it be this puppet also? Oh, I understand, this puppet has runes on it. It can resist the magnetism force here. Xiaohua saw the strange runes on the puppet's body quickly flowing, faintly emitting a black light, and immediately understood. These puppets actually came out of the ground. At this time, around Xiaohua, 3 similar puppets drilled out from the ground and surrounded Xiaohua in a shape. Damn it, they still want to gang fight. Xiaohua said in his heart, and then he raised his voice and said, "This humble Taoist is Xiaohua of the Imperial Lightning Sect, and I unintentionally intruded into this place. I wonder which senior has arrived first?" Just as Xiaohua's voice fell, the radiance on the bodies of the 4 3-meter-tall puppets gradually grew stronger, and they let out a rumbling sound like bees spreading their wings. "Io, they want to fight?" Xiaohua was furious. He slapped his hand and summoned the cloud-suppressing seal. However, just as the cloud-suppressing seal flew into the air, it was immediately pulled by a huge force. It let out a mournful cry and fell to the ground. Bad. Xiaohua was slightly shocked. He pointed his finger, and the cloud-suppressing seal was barely absorbed into his space. With a boom, the 4 puppets around Xiaohua each waved their big fists and smashed toward Xiaohua from all directions. It's a kind of formation. Seeing the fists of the 4 puppets coming from all directions, blocking the space around Xiaohua, Xiaohua immediately understood. Then his figure fluttered and flew into the air. Pooh! When the 4 puppets saw Xiaohua flying away, they followed him like shadows. They flew from all directions and attacked the top of Xiaohua's head. Damn it, it's not over yet. Xiaohua saw the 4 big fists and didn't know how powerful they were. He didn't dare to meet them head-on. He slapped his hand, and the devil hammer appeared in his hand, wanting to deal with them. In his opinion, although he couldn't use magic treasures, the devil hammer was a devil artifact. It shouldn't be affected by the magnetic force, right? Who knew that the devil hammer was originally heavy, and under the magnetic force's effect, it was even heavier. Xiaohua's hand slipped, and he couldn't help but fall to the ground. Magic treasures can't work, devil artifacts can't work, let alone artifacts and yellow talismans. Xiaohua immediately understood the power of the magnetic force here. Fortunately, he wasn't affected by the magnetic force. Although he was trapped in the formation of the 4 puppets, with his martial skills, he wasn't in any danger. However, these 4 puppets are also very powerful. No matter where Xiaohua flies to, they are able to surround Xiaohua. And Xiaohua's awakening lightning escape is greatly affected by the magnetic force. He is unable to break away from these 4 puppets. With a paw sound, Xiaohua's fist collided with a puppet's fist. Xiaohua felt a slight pain, but the puppet didn't feel it at all. It waved its fist and smashed it again. Xiaohua had seen the materials used to refine these puppets before, and knew that it was a foreign object. Using his own body to collide with them wasn't a wise move. The only one who would suffer would be himself. Forget it, these puppets are already so powerful. Moreover, under the magnetic force, I can't gain any advantage. If I wait for them to come out, I won't even have the chance to escape. Xiaohua saw that the puppets were powerful, and naturally thought of the puppet's master's power. He was afraid that they weren't just chi refinement cultivators, and unconsciously thought of retreating. However, just as he used the ethereal steps to dodge, a thought flashed through his mind. How am I stupid? Under the power of magnetism, all spells become illusory. One can only rely on their physical body or special runes to resist the power of magnetism. I'm not good at anything else, but I have martial skills and strength. Isn't that my strength? Finished thinking, Xiaohua laughed loudly. His figure floated, and he didn't use any magic power. He only used the Big Dipper Divine Fist and the ethereal steps to tangle with the 4 puppets. Pa-pa-pa sounds rang out in succession. Xiaohua's fists and feet all landed on the puppets' bodies. Although they were all blocked by a black brilliance and couldn't cause any harm to the puppets, Xiaohua understood that he should have grasped the initiative. That's right, doesn't this young master still have the Great Wisdom Sword? Xiaohua punched out, and with a clap of his hand, the Great Wisdom Sword fell into his hand. Haha! Great kindness, it really is an object from beyond the heavens. Seeing that the Great Wisdom Sword was in his hand and wasn't affected by the magnetic force, Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh loudly. Using his hand to grasp the sword embryo, the heaven-piercing staff technique was like a shadow that could topple mountains and overturn seas as it smashed down. The 4 puppets were admittedly powerful, but they couldn't compare to Xiaohua. In just a short moment, they were beaten by Xiaohua. And if it wasn't for Xiaohua having other intentions in his heart, they would have been beaten to a pulp by Xiaohua. However, just as Xiaohua was about to win, from behind the 4 puppets, more than 10 puppets that were several times taller quietly drilled out from the ground. Chapter 1771. Oh my, there are still so many? Seeing another dozen or so puppets that were a bit bigger than the previous ones crawled out from the ground, Xiaohua was not alarmed, but happy instead. His eyes curved into crescents as he looked at these puppets with interest, as if they were already in his bag. It was not that Xiaohua was arrogant. After all, under such powerful metal and earth magnetism, any cultivator's ability would be reduced. As for Xiaohua's current cultivation, yes, his cultivation was also affected. But wasn't Xiaohua's martial skills exceedingly high? Not to mention a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator, even a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, Xiaohua was confident that he could put up a fight. Of course, Xiaohua could not understand the ability of a golden core cultivator, so he naturally would not consider it. And if there really was a golden core cultivator here, how could the Shanghua sect disciples outside of Mingxi form a formation? The puppets in front of Xiaohua were somewhat different from the previous 4 puppets. Not only were the runes on their bodies incomplete, but their bodies were also clearly damaged. It was obvious that they were damaged underground. It must be because the puppets above ground that were specifically responsible for blocking Xiaohua's path could not block him, so these puppets were summoned. Moreover, among these dozen puppets, 30% were humanoid puppets, and the other 70% were all kinds of strange shapes. Some were like spiritual beasts, some were like birds, lions, tigers, and even centipedes. Divine power centipede? Xiaohua did not have the habit of using spiritual pets to attack, so he had long forgotten about this thing. Now that he saw a centipede puppet, he almost slapped his forehead. However, he immediately smiled bitterly. The magnetic force was so powerful that even his own magic power could not circulate. How could the divine power centipede fight? Roar! Just as Xiaohua's mind was spinning, the bird puppet actually let out a roar similar to a lion or tiger. It spread its wings and pounced toward Xiaohua. Those 3 feet long wings flashed past like 2 rows of sharp swords in front of Xiaohua's eyes. At the same time, this roar was like a signal to attack. All the puppets attacked, and only the lion and tiger puppet stood motionless in the distance. The first 4 puppets attacked from all directions. The next few humanoid puppets formed hand seals, and runes flowed around their bodies. Light condensed in their hands, and the centipede-like puppets actually slithered on the ground, attacking Xiaohua. Ha ha ha, interesting. Xiaohua's eyes lit up when he saw the puppets' various attacking methods. He beamed with joy. In his mind, the puppets were just like the puppets in his space, dull and wooden. He had never imagined that they could be refined to be so flexible. They were simply not inferior to a 10th layer qi refining cultivator. However, before Xiaohua's laughter could land, Two hands suddenly stretched out from the ground under Xiaohua's feet and firmly grabbed his feet. Ouch! Xiaohua was shocked. This attack was really out of his expectations. He originally wanted to use ethereal steps to dodge these attacks. But now he couldn't move his body, so how could he dodge? Swoosh, the bird puppet's wings first slashed down from the sky. The sharp sound of the wind clearly showed the power of these sharp blades. Xiaohua didn't doubt that if he didn't have the protection of his magic power, his head would have been split in two by these wings. Humph! Xiaohua waved his left hand, and the great wisdom heavy sword really blocked the space between the two wings. Ka-ka, two sounds rang out. The puppet's wings hit the sword embryo, but it didn't leave a single mark on the sword embryo. Xiaohua's hand slightly shook, and the great wisdom heavy sword hit the puppet's back. The force was so heavy that the bird puppet's body flashed, and it fell from the sky like a real bird. At the same time, the hands that were tightly grabbing Xiaohua's feet suddenly produced a great force. A force similar to magic power directly rushed into Xiaohua's meridians. Humph, is it that simple? Xiaohua urged the dragon transformation secret art. His entire meridians shook like a dragon's body. That magic power simply couldn't enter his meridians. Come out! Xiaohua supported himself with one foot on the ground, and the other foot kicked up. On one hand, he blocked the centipede puppet's attack, and on the other he separated the hands of the person on the ground. That person naturally also did his best to grab Xiaohua's legs, but his great strength was only relative. Compared to Xiaohua's bone-tempering divine power, it was still lacking by a lot. Ka-ka. It seemed to be the sound of the bones of the person on the ground moving. That person was clearly shocked by Xiaohua's divine power. His two arms were pulled extremely far away. Only then did he wake up and quickly let go of one hand. The other hand, in a panic, clenched into a fist and directly smashed towards Xiaohua's leg. How can this person also have such great strength? While Xiaohua was astonished, the attacks of the four puppets had already closed in on him. Moreover, the spells of several humanoid puppets had already formed. As the puppets waved their hands, they actually attacked the place where Xiaohua was about to dodge. Strange, why aren't these puppets' attacks affected by the magnetic force? Xiaohua was slightly stunned. Moreover, these puppets seem to have been working together for a long time. They actually know where I'm going to dodge. Let's deal with the master of these puppets first. Xiaohua's gaze swept over, and his entire body twisted in an extremely strange manner, as if his entire body was folded up. His back was facing the ground, and one of his hands caught that person's fist that was smashing towards his leg socket at lightning speed. Xiaohua's movement was very sudden, and it was absolutely strange. He dodged all the attacks. The person hidden underground simply didn't think of it, and naturally didn't have time to dodge. Come out! Xiaohua grabbed that person's hand. At first he was stunned. It seemed to be somewhat ice-cold to the touch, quite different from an ordinary person's body. But he didn't have time to think too much. With a loud shout, he actually pulled that person out from underground. But when that person's real face was revealed, Xiaohua couldn't help but be stunned. This person was actually also a puppet. However, this humanoid puppet was about the same size as a person. Its skin was slightly pale, and it was also wearing a Taoist robe. If it weren't for the fact that its facial features were somewhat stiff, and the gaze in its eyes was somewhat lifeless, perhaps it would be the same as a real person. Taking advantage of Xiaohua's shock, that humanoid puppet suddenly struggled, and actually broke free from Xiaohua's hand. Moreover, that humanoid puppet suddenly flew up, fluttering out of the encirclement of the other puppets, and landed on top of the liger puppet outside. Could it be that this is a puppet with a mind of its own? Xiaohua's heart gave birth to an even more absurd feeling. His figure didn't straighten up, and instead flew out while sticking close to the ground. After breaking out of the encirclement of the puppets, it directly somersaulted, and stood upright in midair. You're an aura-refining cultivator. How come you're not afraid of the magnetic force? That humanoid puppet unexpectedly let out an astonished voice. This voice was mellow and smooth, and it wasn't as stiff as Xiaohua imagined it to be. Hee, this young master is an aura-refining cultivator. What about you? Xiaohua laughed involuntarily and asked that puppet with interest. Chapter 1772. Ha 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 ha. Although there was no smile on the puppet's face, its laughter was very loud and clear. How could a brat at the peak of chi refinement like you know who I am? You're just a puppet refined by someone else. What cultivation are you talking about? Xiaohua sneered. Puppet? Ha ha ha. The laughter was even louder, practically mocking. Ignorant brat. This is my divine sense possession technique. If my main body was here, I would have already killed you with one palm. Divine sense possession technique. Xiaohua was slightly stunned. He didn't know anything about puppet techniques, so how could he know so much? He waved his hand and said, "If you're a senior expert, please show yourself. Otherwise, what I's facing is just a puppet, so I can't be considered a senior." Ha ha ha, brat, you're really stubborn. The puppet sneered. For you to be able to come here, I'm afraid you've followed my tracks. And it should be those puppet fragments that were torn apart by the spatial cracks. Since you've received my favor, then return it to me now. While speaking, the runes around the puppet's body overflowed, and a faint green chi formed on the puppet's body, quickly gathering in the puppet's hand. Go. The puppet shouted, and a sword light like a flying sword flew out from its hand, stabbing toward Xiaohua with incomparable speed. Ha! Why isn't your technique affected by the magnetic force? Xiaohua was slightly startled, and while asking, his figure swayed in the air. That swing was like a hammer suspended in midair, seemingly slow but actually swift. It looked very easy to dodge the sword light. Hee, if you tell me why you're not affected by the magnetic force, then I'll tell you the reason. The puppet's voice was also somewhat unexpected as it replied. Xiaohua himself didn't know why he wasn't affected by the magnetic force, so how could he answer it? He shouted. It's impolite to come and go. Brandishing the great wisdom sword, he pounced towards the puppet from a strange angle with the heavenly staff technique. Here, the puppet wasn't nervous in the slightest, and with a wave of its hand, a sparkling small green shield appeared in its hand. It raised it very casually, blocking in front of the great wisdom sword. Hee. Xiaohua's face didn't change in the slightest, but he was secretly delighted in his heart. When the great wisdom sword struck the small shield, a loud kacha sound rang out. The small light green shield was actually shattered into dozens of sparkling green fragments by the great wisdom sword. With a schwa sound, the fragments fell into the air. "Io, you were born with divine strength?" The puppet was slightly shocked, and there was a hint of delight in its voice. "Or are you a body cultivator?" Hearing the puppet's delight, Xiaohua felt a little uneasy in his heart. He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Why are you asking so much? Hiding in the shadows can't be considered as open and above board." Ha ha ha, open and above board. What year is it now? Why are you still talking to me about this? The puppet let out a hearty laugh and clapped its hand. A 3-inch-long azure sword appeared in its hand. With a wave of its hand, it pierced forward again. Why would Xiaohua be afraid of this? His figure flickered, and he started to fight with him in the air with ease. As for those puppets from before, apart from the 4 humanoid puppets that were still standing in 4 different directions, surrounding Xiaohua and that puppet, the other puppets once again sank into the ground and disappeared without a trace. In terms of close combat, if Xiaohua claimed to be number 2, perhaps no one would dare to claim to be number 1. In merely the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Xiaohua had already clearly figured out the puppet's background. Immediately after, Xiaohua didn't hesitate. With 3 consecutive pa-pa-pa sounds, he forced the puppet's flying sword to collide head-on. The puppet's entire figure was shaken by Xiaohua and fell back several zhang. Ha ha ha, Xiaohua laughed loudly. His figure flew to the side of the puppet like a wisp of smoke. He waved his hand and shouted, "Eat this young master's stick." The puppet lost its balance, but its left hand still raised the flying sword, wanting to block the great wisdom sword. With a loud pa sound, it was exactly as Xiaohua had expected. Under the great wisdom sword, the flying sword simply didn't have the power to fight back, and was immediately smashed into pieces. As for the puppet, it sped up its descent from the sky. "Come, you." Xiaohua's figure sped up again. In an instant he swept to the puppet's side. He stretched out his hand and placed it precisely on the puppet's shoulder. With a thought, he actually put that puppet into his storage bag. Ha ha! Xiao Hua saw that his plan had succeeded and didn't hesitate any longer. His entire figure turned around and flew towards the passage of the hurricane. Xiao Hua's movements were truly fast and absolutely out of the expectations of bystanders. The 4 puppets surrounded him and simply didn't have time to react. They saw Xiao Hua sweep past the top of a puppet's head and use his hand to scoop it up. He even put that dumbfounded puppet into his storage bag as if he hadn't had enough. Just as Xiao Hua's figure flew in front of the passage and was about to sweep in, a similarly light cyan brilliance flew out from the ground in front of the passage. It was several times faster than the flying sword in the puppet's hand and stabbed towards Xiao Hua's leg. This is bad. Xiao Hua saw the cyan flying sword stab out and secretly complained in his heart. He waved the great wisdom sword in his hand. With a ka sound, the 2 swords collided. However, that flying sword only slanted forward and didn't shatter like Xiao Hua expected. Xiao Hua saw that the flying sword was sent flying, but his figure still didn't stop and still rushed towards the passage. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh, a series of sounds, for light cyan flying swords suddenly appeared in front of Xiao Hua's eyes. Like weaving a net, they shuttled back and forth in midair, blocking Xiao Hua in midair. This Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed slightly. Looking at the 5 flying swords cruising in midair, the expression on his face was extremely unsightly. Ha ha ha, what a bold brat. A familiar voice came from behind Xiao Hua. It was the voice that came from the puppet just now. And Xiao Hua suddenly turned around, only to see a thin old man wearing a green Taoist robe standing about 10 meters behind him. His hair was a bit white, and his face was thin. There was a mocking expression on his face, as he stood there very indifferently. Middle stage foundation establishment. Xiao Hua looked at the old man's cultivation, and the astonishment on his face disappeared in a flash. What a powerful brat. The old man looked at Xiao Hua with interest and sneered. You're called Xiao Hua? Are you a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect? That's right. Xiao Hua's heart trembled. It turned out that this cultivator had already noticed him, and remembered the name he reported when he entered this place. He hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Senior, which sect are you from? Please bestow a name. How can I tell you my name so easily? The old man sneered. I didn't expect that there was a body cultivator among the Imperial Thunder sect's disciples, and that you even have the habit of stealing. Hee, if I didn't set up this Azure Essence sword formation in advance, I'm afraid you'd have run away long ago, right? Azure Essence sword formation? Xiao Hua was slightly dazed. Looking around, he saw several flying swords cruising in midair and laughed bitterly. This cultivator didn't show himself all along, and only relied on a puppet to fight with him. He thought that the other party was looking for Zhong Yaolu and didn't care about him. Who knew that the other party actually set up a sword formation near the passage, and waited for him to walk into the trap? Sword formation, that was a type of formation among flying swords. Once trapped, it wasn't just 1 or 2 flying swords alone. Xiao Hua had only heard of it. What's wrong? Scared. Seeing Xiao Hua's expression change, the cultivator sneered. Do you think it's so easy to take away my puppet? Quickly take out the puppet, and I can still consider sparing your life. Otherwise, when I capture you, the pain of soul searching isn't something that you can escape from just by begging for mercy. Humph, seeing the cultivator mention the puppet, Xiao Hua's heart shook and he sneered. This isn't Senior's place. I just came to take a look. Why would you kill me like this? Your puppet isn't a match for me, so it naturally belongs to me. If Senior captures me, I'll immediately destroy that puppet before I'm captured. Humph. A trace of fierceness flashed through the cultivator's eyes, and a sense of regret arose in his heart. He attached great importance to this puppet of his, and was very confident in it. He simply didn't expect that Xiao Hua would be able to easily defeat the puppet, and even take it away. How about it, Senior? If you let me go, I'll swear a blood oath that when I pass through the passage behind me, I'll definitely release this puppet. Xiao Hua was secretly delighted in his heart, and said in a low voice, In my hands, in my sword formation, You don't have the power to fight back. The old man sneered, and with a clap of his hand, a foundation establishment pressure pressed down on Xiaohua. Moreover, that sword technique was constantly being shot out from his hands. The flying swords that were as docile as fish immediately became ferocious and flew toward Xiaohua from all directions. Roar! Xiaohua had long been paying attention to the old man's pressure. This was also the only thing he was afraid of. Seeing that the pressure wasn't affected by the magnetic force, he sighed in his heart. His mighty Vajra Dharma body shook and broke free from his body. Ah! True spirit bloodline? True spirit Dharma body? Seeing Xiaohua's Dharma body, the old man was stunned and blurted out. True spirit bloodline? True spirit Dharma body? Xiaohua was slightly taken aback, but the current situation was urgent, and he didn't feel like answering. The Vajra Dharma body appeared and blocked the old man's foundation establishment pressure. Go! The old man pointed with his hand, and several flying swords flashed with light blue sword light and stabbed toward Xiaohua. At the same time, he laughed nastily. Since it's the legendary true spirit bloodline, that's even better. I'll extract the true blood from your bloodline and give it to my puppet to use. It's definitely more effective than some Zhong Yao milk. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Xiaohua steeled his heart. The Dharma body waved its fists and struck towards the flying swords, while he swung the great wisdom sword and directly attacked the old man. How can you guess the divine ability of a foundation establishment cultivator? The old man chuckled and rubbed his hands. The flying swords dodged the Dharma body's fists and stabbed towards Xiaohua one after another. Moreover, a blue brilliance appeared around his body and gradually condensed into an oval-shaped light shield. It was at least 3 inches thick and blocked in front of the great wisdom sword. Go! Xiaohua knew that this light shield was condensed from a foundation establishment cultivator's true essence. Although his great wisdom sword could block it, it probably couldn't break it. Moreover, several biting cold flying swords were already close to him. If he didn't counterattack, his life would be in danger. Thus Xiaohua opened his mouth, and the green and red executioner dream also flew out. Chapter 1773. Xiaohua didn't dare to hold back anymore. He opened his mouth, and the green and red dream executioner flew out. The dream executioner was refined using Tai green qi, which was born from Xiantian gold qi. As soon as it flew out, a tyrannical magnetic force appeared from the ground, pulling the dream executioner down. Rise! The Buddha Sarira outside Xiaohua's Naiwan palace emitted a faint Buddhist light. The Buddhist sense was activated with all its might, controlling the dream executioner. With a swoosh, the dream executioner's sword tip tilted, and immediately split into 2. Then 2, 4, and in the blink of an eye, the dream executioner turned into 8 identical flying swords. 5 of them flew towards the cultivator's flying sword, while the other 3 whistled and pierced towards the cultivator's forehead. Ah! Flying sword? The cultivator was stunned and said in shock. When did the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples learn the sword cultivator's flying sword? This flying sword is strange. The dream executioner's boundless negative karma power also had a strong effect on foundation establishment cultivators. That cultivator was obviously plagued by negative karma, and he could clearly feel the dream executioner's deterrence. I'll let you have a taste of I's methods. Xiaohua saw that the dream executioner was effective, and a cold smile appeared on his face. He activated his Buddhist sense to resist the magnetic force while fighting against the cultivator's green essence sword array. Just a small trick. Although the cultivator said this, he didn't dare to be negligent. With a wave of his hand, not only did the 3 puppets beside him pounce over, the several strange puppets that were previously buried in the ground also jumped out and attacked Xiaohua from different directions. Damn it, do you still want face? Why are you ganging up on me? Xiaohua cursed. No matter what, you're still a foundation establishment senior. Taking your life is the right way. The cultivator didn't feel the slightest shame. He clapped his hand and took out a foot-long bamboo covered in green runes. He activated his magic power, and the bamboo emitted a faint light and stopped above the cultivator's head. Seeing the cultivator take out another magic tool, Xiaohua's gaze swept over, and he was shocked. However, he didn't have time to care. The Vajra Dharma body faced the 3 human-shaped puppets, the 5 flying swords tangled with the green essence sword array, and the 3 flying swords fighting against the strange puppets. Thanks to Xiaohua's several months of training, he could divide the dream executioner into 8 swords and split his attention to control the flying swords. But because of this, he couldn't use the great wisdom heavy sword array. The magnetic force here was very strong. Xiaohua used all his strength to urge his Buddhist sense to control the dream executioner. Although it was very strenuous, it was extremely beneficial to the tempering of his Buddhist sense. It was far more effective than his own aimless cultivation. Moreover, the cultivator's green essence sword array was also quite marvelous. Xiaohua's 5 swords were at a disadvantage at first, but after the time it took to eat a meal, not only did Xiaohua finally find some traces of the sword array, he also became more proficient in controlling the dream executioner. He actually gradually turned the situation around, and was able to tie with the green essence sword array. The cultivator standing in the distance looked at Xiaohua's divine bravery. At first he was shocked, then angry, but gradually, joy appeared on his face. Roar! Xiaohua's Vajra Dharma body roared angrily. He suddenly waved his left fist, which actually had the flavor of the Big Dipper divine fist. With a bang, it smashed into the centipede puppet's back. With a bang, the light on the puppet's back flickered. Then, the puppet's joints were broken inch by the Dharma body and scattered on the ground. Hiss! That cultivator sucked in a breath of cold air, his heart slightly aching. Pay attention, fellow Taoist Xiao. That cultivator pointed his finger. The bamboo stopped in midair, flew up, and attacked Xiaohua's head. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He simply didn't think about why that cultivator would warn him. While he was busy, he took the opportunity to swing the great wisdom sword in his hand forward. With a boom, it actually blocked the green light scattered by the bamboo. Xiaohua's hand, however, sank. The great wisdom sword dropped half a foot. Return. Taking advantage of Xiaohua's distraction, that cultivator waved his hand. 5 flying swords flew in front of Xiaohua. They spun a few times in midair and flew to Xiaohua's side, blocking him from the passage. Stop! That cultivator chanted an incantation. The several puppets also stopped and returned to their original positions. Seeing that the cultivator took the initiative to withdraw, Xiaohua's heart relaxed. He opened his mouth, and the dream execution turned into a sword light and flew back into his mouth a bit crookedly. To be honest, the magnetic force here affected the flying swords too much. Although Xiaohua had the Buddha Sarira, if he fought for another hour, Xiaohua definitely wouldn't be able to hold on. After retrieving the dream execution, Xiaohua slanted his great wisdom sword. He didn't dare to withdraw the Dharma body outside his body. His gaze swept over the bamboo that flew back to the cultivator's head, and he sneered. Senior, why did you stop? Don't you want Junior's true spirit bloodline? Hee, don't be complacent, brat. I just saw that you have some use, and wanted to make a deal with you. That cultivator said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. If you can help me get the Earth Crystal Yao milk, what would I want your true spirit bloodline for? Earth Crystal Yao milk. Xiaohua was stunned. His eyes turned a few times and he asked curiously, Didn't you want to find Zhong Yao milk? I wanted to find Zhong Yao milk before, but since I met you, didn't the heavens send you here? Why would I want Zhong Yao milk? The cultivator said with a smile. What is this Earth Crystal Yao milk? If you don't tell me clearly, I definitely won't make a deal with you. Xiaohua shook his head like a rattledrum. What a joke. How could he dare to take something that even a foundation establishment cultivator couldn't get? Take out this old man's puppet, and this old man will naturally tell you. The cultivator pointed with his hand and said, Hee, senior, that puppet is now surnamed Xiao. How could Junior take it out so easily? Xiaohua's smile was like a flower, and he cupped his hands and said, Moreover, this Junior still doesn't know Senior's origin. How could I dare to make a deal with Senior? That's true. This old man was a bit careless. That cultivator also squinted his eyes and smiled. This old man is the founder of the Great Bamboo Sect, Mo Qingyuan. Great Bamboo Sect? Founder? Xiaohua was stunned. He looked at the puppet at the side and said, "Isn't Senior from the puppet sect?" Hearing Xiao Hua mention the puppet sect, Mo Qingyuan's face turned cold. As expected of a famous sect in the country of Xi, you even know of the puppet sect in the country of Meng. Unfortunately, the current Xiaoyu continent only has the Great Bamboo sect, and no longer has the puppet sect. Great Bamboo sect. Xiao Hua slightly nodded and pointed with his finger. Could it be, this bamboo is what Senior relied on to come to this magnetic land? You actually thought of it? Mo Qingyuan's face was astonished and he asked back, "Then why aren't you affected by the magnetic force? What do you think?" Xiao Hua didn't answer, and also asked back. Mo Qingyuan's expression slightly changed, but it quickly returned to normal and said, "Since you already guessed it, this old man won't hide it. This old man obtained this kuragi bamboo in the northernmost desert of the Xiaoyu continent. It's an innate wood artifact, and it's not affected by the magnetic force of metal and earth here. These puppets, and Senior's flying sword, they were also refined from kuragi bamboo, right?" Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Yes, that's right." Mo Qingyuan nodded and said, "Great. This junior has been longing for the refining method of puppets for a long time." Xiao Hua smacked his lips and said very embarrassedly, "What? The refining method of puppets?" Mo Qingyuan's expression changed drastically, and he waved his hand. "Impossible, this old man absolutely won't give it to you." Xiao Hua's face immediately changed into a pained expression, and he spread out his hands. This is troublesome. This junior originally wanted to part with it and return this puppet to Senior under the circumstances of peeking into the art of puppets. Moreover, this junior also planned to make a deal with Senior. This junior still has to see how to get out. As he spoke, he looked at the hurricane passage in the distance. Mo Qingyuan stared at Xiao Hua, and after a long while he sneered. "Xiao Hua, you've got guts, actually daring to bargain with this old man." Well, Xiao Hua's Vajradharma body stretched deeply, and his main body said, "This junior is just stating facts. I dare not threaten Senior." Isn't it just a true spirit bloodline? What's so great about it? Mo Qingyuan glanced at the Vajradharma body that was dozens of feet long and sneered. "Seeing that your Dharma body is incomplete, I know that your bloodline is impure, and I don't know what true spirit your bloodline belongs to. Although it's quite similar to the sky ape, why does it look so ugly?" Xiao Hua frowned and said very sincerely, "This junior also doesn't know. Before joining the Imperial Thunder sect, I obtained an incomplete cultivation method from the ancestral hall in the clan, and this thing appeared as I was practicing. If Senior knows, can you enlighten me?" "Of course I can tell you, but this is my puppet." "Oh, then there's no need to trouble Senior." Xiao Hua shook his head and said, "Since this junior is now a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect, there's no need to talk about the bloodline from before." "All right." Mo Qingyuan gritted his teeth and said, "Since you don't want to know, this old man won't tell you either. However, it's impossible for you to obtain the complete art of puppetry. This old man can only give you the most basic and allow you to refine a simple puppet." Xiao Hua was overjoyed in his heart, but his expression didn't change, and he shook his head and said, "That won't do. This junior wants to refine a puppet that can do battle. Since Senior isn't willing, then this junior will use Senior's puppet." Dream on. This old man's puppet has my divine sense attached to it, so how can you use it? You just have to take out the puppet from your storage pouch, and it'll attack you right away. Mo Qingyuan roared with laughter. "This is already my greatest concession. If you don't agree, then this old man will kill you on the spot even if I have to give up the puppet." As he spoke, he pointed with his hand, and the bamboo flew over again. "All right." Xiao Hua glanced at the bamboo and could only sigh. "I'll do as Senior says." "Great." Mo Qingyuan clapped his hand and took out a green jade slip, and he said, "Take out the puppet and we'll exchange it together." Xiao Hua immediately shook his head when he heard this and said, "Don't, Senior. In this junior's opinion, let's wait until we're out of the hurricane passage. In here, this junior is afraid." Mo Qingyuan's teeth creaked as he said coldly, "Could it be that you're not afraid of me after arriving in the netherworld?" Senior is a foundation establishment cultivator. How can this junior not be afraid? This junior has already thought it through. Before leaving this spatial rift, I'll have to ask Senior to make a blood oath, Xiao Hua said very calmly. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.